Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Real Graps podcast. Today, we are here to discuss the Mr. McMahon Netflix documentary. I am here, your boy, the host, Uptown Lupo 420, otherwise known as Sexual Chocolate. I'm here with my friends Abner, Noel, and Robbie. Guys, how are we doing?
Good.
Did you call yourself Sexual Chocolate?
Yeah.
It's
Who
your
called
boy,
you that?
Bronson Reed.
Your mom.
Oh my god.
Wow,
Anyway.
that's
Come on out here, you rapist.
Yeah.
Let's go, Vince McMahon.
What kind of
podcast.
chocolate? Like a Kinder bar?
Like a what is
Like
like a Cadbury.
Like the
What the fuck is a
midnight
Cadbury?
version of milk. You never heard of a
European chocolate.
Cadbury?
No, I never heard of a Cadbury.
It's
Oh
actually
no,
really good.
you might be the most uncultured person I've ever met.
Bro, what is a Cadbury? I don't know.
It's a chocolate, bro. You see it on the stores. Like it's not like it's an unknown chocolate.
Hey, I'm guilty as charged.
You know who else is guilty?
Real hot
Vince
start.
McMahon of various crimes of which this documentary goes over with. But before we actually get into the documentary itself, I kind of wanted to ask you guys what you thought before you watched it. Because, like, me personally, I thought it was just going to be the definitive, like, Vince McMahon hit piece. Because I saw the things on Twitter that he, like, tried to buy it from Netflix, and he was super upset with his portrayal in the documentary and all that. So, what did you guys think?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
thought
go,
like
Noel.
I was gonna say I thought with the whole documentary itself, when it was coming out, I originally thought it was going to be sort of like an homage to him in a sense, or it was going to be a hit piece, and I couldn't determine which one by the trailer. And then afterwards, like after watching the trailer and seeing who did it and stuff like that, and like everything that came, like before the whole all the episodes came out, I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna lean towards hit piece, even though we'll get into it. But I didn't think it was as bad as people were gonna make it out to be.
Yeah, I think I was expecting it to be a lot meaner to him. And it was pretty mean still, but like not as mean as it could have been. It could have been a lot worse. But part of the reason it's so good, I think, is because they had all these people involved that know and like him. And it would be hard to get them to be involved if it were going to be, real hard hitting. And honestly, just getting him to talk about anything in his life honestly seems like it just wouldn't be possible. Because my biggest takeaway from this documentary is that he genuinely, like, I always thought like he was like kind of in on the bit a little bit, which he kind of is, but like it genuinely seems like he's like completely delusional. Like he lives in a completely delusional world. Like, and he genuinely does not see reality
Yeah,
in
it's
a
like
realistic way. His
like he's
reality
his
is like
own
totally
reality.
skewed, is like compared to everyone else. And and honestly, it does a really good job of. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not, but it does a really good job of like showing. He will say one thing, and then it'll show three different people their opinion on it, and theirs all kind of match, and his is like really weird and off. And it's like, dude, what is going on with you? So, but yeah, I was expecting it to be a little bit tougher on him, and it kind of wasn't as tough as I thought it could have been.
Yeah, like his reality is like so different than what we see, and that was like easily the biggest takeaway of the documentary, I would say.
Yeah.
Jim, did you have like any like what was your idea of like Vince McMahon and like everything that was going on like prior to the documentary? Like what was your
Wait,
like?
in my opinion,
Jeez, you left a big gap of silence, bro, when we stopped talking. So he jumped on.
I
the
didn't
next
hear.
thing.
I was fixing my mic.
You gotta listen.
You guys fucking told me to fix my mic.
Listen.
This guy earlier wanted to do an in-person.
Come on out here, you.
Like, I'll buy a mic.
rapist.
I'll buy a mic. Now here he is.
I didn't buy a mic because you said no. The fuck.
Anyway, what did you think before you actually saw the doc?
I thought that. I mean, he's a scumbag, but I kind of understand where he's coming from. Where he's like, yeah, I do anything for my business, because he's like he's a sociopath. So to him, whatever he does for the business is the right thing to do. Like, he doesn't see it any other way.
I found that part.
I agree that he sees it that way, but it's also like that's what I mean. Like in his view, like I get the logic of where he's coming from, but like if he lived in any reality based on like real life, like if he had any kind of actual perspective on his life, like he would see like no, bro. Like the way you're saying things are not actually how shit is.
Yeah.
Like you're just kind of saying it a way to make yourself feel better, kind of like cope. He literally he's a cope fiend, bro. That's what he does. He sells cope for a living.
Not steroids.
And that too.
Technically,
like
yes.
There were certain parts of it where it was proven that he was lying, but to me, I really do think he was like, in his head, he was telling the truth.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. Like, I think I don't think he's like he's dishonest. It's literally that he is completely delusional, and he just doesn't live in the real world. Which we'll talk about it. He's a victim, so apparently he's a victim.
Yeah, kind of crazy. He just throws that out there. It doesn't say anything after, but
crazy timing too. I mean, I know this. Yeah. They interviewed him before the allegations and all that, but like interesting timing that's revealed, and then while they're interviewing him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I have these.
By the way, pal,
allegations. I have to go.
I cannot tell you.
Forget, I was molested."
Yeah. So that was before the documentary comes out, and then it releases. I don't know if it released 3:00 our time, so it could be like 12:00 for like people over in California, so they can just like binge it or whatever. But I woke up. I wake up for work at like 5:30, so I kind of check my phone at 5:30, like 6:00. I'm at the house. I see clips of the documentary. I've seen clips on episode 6. I don't know how somebody could do that.
People did not wait.
It was
so some of these people, like, this is their jobs, like wrestling and stuff. So I'm assuming you saw like like the wrestling Twitter clips from like the famous wrestling Twitter people. That's what I was seeing all day. I think like this might be their job, where they're like journalists in wrestling.
Yeah, that's still
because I saw like a bunch. Like as soon as I woke up and like just went about my day, as soon as the documentary came out, I didn't even get a chance to like sit down and watch it. And like people are showing me episode 6. I'm like, bro, back up, please.
I'll tell you exactly what caused this, and this might be a little ramble, so you can stop me at any time when you get sick of it.
All right, stop.
This is all Elon Musk. This is all Elon Musk's fault because he incentivized fucking clicks on his social media website. So all these people are farming clicks on their videos. They're basically giving you the Netflix documentary on Twitter for free. It might as well be pirating, bro. And then the same people, like, if they were actually journalists and they had fucking integrity, they would collect their thoughts, write it down, release an article, not fucking post a fucking documentary online so that nobody has to even watch the fucking documentary. It's ridiculous.
And they don't even get.
And it takes away the whole fucking documentary is an art form. I don't give a fuck. Like, when you post clips out of context, you're taking the art form out of it, and you're just posting clips. Like, let people watch the fucking documentary, bro. Like, they put it together a certain way for a reason. They're documentarians. They're fucking trying to tell you a story, and you're taking the fucking clips out of context. It fucking pisses me off, bro.
The context,
and it's all just for money. They don't give a fuck. All right, whatever.
Is that something that's been on your mind for a while?
No, but it pissed me off because he made me think about it. I was like, yeah, dude, that's fucked up.
Yeah, so we got episode 1 here. Episode 1 is called Junior. And the first thing that I want to point out before we say anything is that Vince McMahon his lips are purple. I don't know if anybody else
Dude, and
noticed
his
that.
eyebrows are fucking black, bro. What is this? Why is his hair so
No,
dark? He
This
was
is
gray
before
like
the
5 years
mafia
ago.
look. Yeah.
What the hell is going on with the man, bro?
Bro, it's what happens when you abuse steroids for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think steroids are something you take when you want to look younger, Noel. Gosh.
But he's just abusing them. Oh god.
I don't know if he is. He's Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
That's the
Did you
prime reason
not
why
see the pictures of him on the boat? He was ripped.
What boat?
Remember when they were talking about the
He
dock?
might he might have something wrong with him. Like there might be something else wrong with him that he just hasn't told anybody.
Honestly, I know we're gonna get in. There's like a whole bit about his psychology and his psyche or whatever you want to call it, and what makes him him. They don't talk about at all. There are a lot of things that they don't talk about that I personally, think that should have been included or whatever. But one of the things that they don't talk about is his obsession with bodybuilding. Like, not
They
that
don't
many
talk
people in
about
the
that.
world are that jacked. Not that many people that are billionaires, like, are in shape, period. There's something to just a man that dedicated to just work and then working out and sleep. That's all that he does. And there's
Yeah, that was like
something there.
I was surprised they didn't touch on that. Like they
Kind of
They, like-
briefly mention it.
yeah, they briefly mentioned it with the whole bodybuilding competition that he came up with. But outside of that, they didn't really focus on it because that was like a real thing that he was a part of in a way. Like it was like he really loved bodybuilding to the
Yeah.
point where he fucking created a whole competition about it.
Dude, in the CM Punk thing, when CM Punk did the interview with Ariel Helwani, right before the allegations came out, he was talking about how he was in the gym and Vince McMahon walked into the gym for his daily workout at like 76 or whatever how old he is.
Fucking madman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
episode
I don't know.
episode 1.
I don't
Episode
think-
1, Junior.
I don't think it's that weird that he's obsessed with that stuff. People just have things they like.
It was. I think
There's the resident McMahon apologist.
Glazer.
No, I mean you guys
The
are saying like
podcast
that's
apologist.
super weird, but I don't think it's that weird that he was into bodybuilding.
I mean, if we're
It's
really
not
going to
that-
get into
There's
bodybuilding.
other things we should talk about that's weird, but I don't think him being like, oh yeah, I want to look like this is that weird.
Well, it's body
That's probably
dysmorphia,
the
first
least
off.
weird thing.
That's pretty weird.
I think the issue comes into play when it's not that he's into bodybuilding; it's that he's into it bodybuilding so much that it bled into his personal life and also the business, where like he was obsessed with the way a man was built at every single level. Didn't matter what the talent was; it was like, how are you proportioned? Like, I need to know how you're proportioned.
Is that something they touched on in the documentary?
No,
mean,
not really.
Kind of.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what. My point is that I don't think it's that weird that he was into a documentary. And like, because you got to think about it. He's trying to sell a product. So like Hulk Hogan, like you have to look a certain way. Now you don't, not in today's age, but back in the 80s, like you definitely had to look like you can beat someone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I know what you mean.
Think about actors. Think about like Sylvester Stallone and all them back in the 80s. They did that shit.
Yeah.
They had to
Yeah.
look a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's
True.
like I don't see anything wrong with like the bodybuilding aspect. There's just way worse stuff that
well, there are way worse stuff.
there's just way too much stuff that was like that. To me, that was pretty normal because you have people today that are into bodybuilding
Yeah.
like crazy.
I just think that he just wants control over all things, and the ultimate control he can have over his body is to make him as jacked as
Like,
possible.
I mean, think about it this way: like in the '70s, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the most famous people on earth, and he was a bodybuilder. So it makes sense why like someone would be obsessed with that. It's just because
He's a freak bull.
it's just like
heard he
that's
was at
probably the
the
most
freak
normal
offs.
thing he has, in my opinion, that he's
Yeah.
obsessed with bodybuilding.
No, I would definitely put it at the low end of the totem pole in terms of like what he is weird about. I would definitely put that on the low end.
Yeah.
The other stuff,
You know where it starts. The weird stuff.
He was
starts
molested
when he was born. Yep. When he
Why
was
did
born
you say it like that?
in episode
I
1.
just wanted to get to it.
Yeah.
I wanted to get to it first.
I don't know how.
So what did they say? Did they say so? His stepdad beat him.
So
Yeah,
his
his-
stepdad
and
beat
his
him.
mom molested
His
him?
mom. He doesn't use the word molest. He just
Molested,
uses the
but
word
he-
incest, which is
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Jesus,
Yeah.
that's worse. So he wasn't molested. He was raped.
pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say that he didn't consent.
But he can't consent. He was a child.
That's true.
The way he phrased
Was
it
a
was
child.
the way he phrased it was so awkward, and I wonder what like the producers were thinking in that moment, because he goes, it's something. He's like saying like, it's like whatever, it happened, it's in the past, the abuse, physical, mental, and then he goes, the incest, and I want to know, like, in that moment when he says the word incest, like, do they just stop and go, do we just keep fucking filming this?
No, I know
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I would do. That's gold.
I know exactly
No,
what they
but
thought.
here's the thing. I feel like it was weird. That was one of my problems with the first episode. It was weird how he talked about that, and then like there's like no follow up, bro. Like they didn't really go into it that much.
That's the thing.
I was like, but it's like because he doesn't want to talk
Yeah.
about it. I guess I don't know, but
I think-
it's like, why even bring it up? Why even bring it up? And that gets me to like thinking like, this is Vince McMahon we're talking about, bro. And he even says in the beginning of the episode, like he's kind of saying without saying he's going to be careful about what he says and what he say. So like, why is he choosing to say that?
Yeah,
True.
I don't know. It's all he says that, but there's always like hints of truth and a little bit of everything. So he says like, I don't want people to know the real me. Everything that I've always done has been whatever I want you to see, or it's all been part of the show and all that. But like, it's also just interesting that he'll like throw that little bit of information out there, and no one is like alive now to fact check it. Like his mom died. No one knows who the stepdad is. His brother Rob McMahon is dead. He died like a couple years ago.
That's true.
So nobody can confirm or deny any of that.
I think he's definitely. I mean, I would think he's probably telling the truth.
I think
It wouldn't be
too,
something.
but it's
But like, it's just weird. Like why you would bring it up, and then they would like because it doesn't really add anything necessarily to the documentary. But then also, well, I guess it does. It does. Because he's kind of like it. It does. So, but my point is basically they didn't really go like ask because that's new information, is it not? Like, I mean, nobody asked really follow-up questions to like really dive into it.
So
or he just didn't want to and they cut it out. I don't know.
He did a Playboy article once where he talked about it, and then he also said that if he said something weird. It was like if he could kill his stepdad, he would. Something in that Playboy article that he talked about. It was kind of crazy, but yeah, he brought it up a couple times, but like not enough where anybody can like. I don't know. He like rarely talks about it. I think he's talked about it here and then like in that Playboy thing.
But it is important because I was kind of hinting it wasn't important. It is important because the whole point of this documentary basically is to show that this guy is kind of a stunted individual, and he was never gonna grow up to be like normal. Like the guy has serious daddy issues, and like his whole like view on sex is like totally fucked up, and like he thinks he's being funny at various times in the documentary, and it's like, bro, you are 70 years old, you are a sick being, bro. Like you are a sick puppy.
Dude, the stuff about sex, I have so much to get, especially like on the last episode.
Oh yeah.
He like made me uncomfortable.
Oh my god!
This
is live. This is live. This is live.
Call the hotline.
Yeah. So the first episode gives you a little bit about his upbringing, how he went to a military school, how he met Linda McMahon, and all that, and then he gets into the relationship with his father.
Wait, can we talk about how he describes his wife?
Sure.
Well, wait, can we describe how old he met her and how old she was? We need to talk about that.
16 and 12.
I don't know if that was you got to think about it. It's like in the 60s or 50s.
I don't
like,
give
that's,
a fuck.
Noel, I'm with you. You know what?
was
I have to
16?
say, no, I have to say, I knew a guy in high school, and he wasn't even 16. We were freshmen, and he was dating like a 7th grader. And I
That's
looked at that
fucking
guy
weird.
so differently. I was like, "You're weird."
A 9th grader
dude.
dating a
Dude,
7th
I
grader?
don't know. I think
Yes.
people are gonna have different. I'm
Mm.
not being an apologist, but that people are gonna have different.
I
opinions
agree.
about
It is
all
going to be
that.
like everybody's going to be different, but to me, I was looking at that. I'm like that.
Yo,
Like,
when
Mm.
he,
I mean, to us
I
it's
so
weird.
see that.
To us, it's like to me, it's weird. But again, like times were different
Yeah.
back.
bro, when he said 16 and she was 13, I did a double take. Like, what did he just say?
Bro, isn't your girlfriend 2 years younger than you, buddy?
Whoa.
When
No.
you meet her?
Whoa.
Whoa, she's a year younger.
Whoa.
This is what I'm saying. It's also different when you're all like you're adults. Like
Yeah.
I feel like he is at like
Mm-hmm.
when you get to that age, it becomes like a strange kind of conundrum. I think, and for me, like
No, I'm
when
just kidding.
when I looked at that kid who I knew who was like dating that 7th grader, I was like, I can't look at you the same way. You're
Nah,
kind of
that's-
strange to me.
That's weird, but like,
Yeah.
my point, my thing is like, it's just a weird ass time, bro. Think about what was allowed back then. That
That's true. That's
today,
very true.
Yeah.
it's like,
And that
holy-
also it explains part of why he's such a fucking weird guy himself. He grew up in that time, and all that generation is fucking weirdos. I mean, let's
It's the
be
lead
honest.
paint.
yeah, no, like that's
They're
what I'm
all
saying.
weird.
Like when I
Yeah.
was watching the doc, like there was some stuff I was like, Jesus Christ, what the? And then I thought about it. I was like, that was probably normal back then. Like that was like.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like a difference of like there was so much weird stuff that
Every generation has stuff that they don't think twice about, but that future generations are gonna look back on and be like, "You guys,
are weird.
what the fuck is wrong with you?"
Yeah, like
I don't want to jump ahead too far, but you know, like, I'm sure Jim, you mentioned he's like, did you talk about his stepdad or not his stepdad, his actual dad yet?
We were just about to get into that. So he's 12, and then he finds out that his real dad is Vince McMahon. I think it's Vince J. McMahon Sr. or whatever. He is the owner of the WWF, I think it's called. Just kidding. I know it's the WWF, but he is the weirdest. He's probably like. I think that he's I know he just went on this thing about the context of the history or whatever. I think that he's just weird no matter what time period.
Oh, he is. Yeah,
Who is that?
Yeah, like
he's a deadbeat.
No,
this guy?
his dad. No matter what
Total
year, no matter what generation,
Yeah.
was just a deadbeat
And
person.
here's the funniest, most ironic part about that, bro. Vince McMahon Jr. lived with that father and all, and he lived through that experience, and he said, "You're a good father. I'm gonna do this to my
Yeah,
son."
that,
He said, "I'm gonna do
wanted
what
to
you
touch
did.
on that.
I'm gonna
I
do
wanted
just
to touch on
but
that.
worse.
Like he
Yeah,
lived,
arguably
his
worse.
dad basically neglected him his whole life, and he said, "I love you."
Once.
He
Yeah.
said, "I love you once."
Yeah,
And then he died.
yeah, he died.
Oh
He
my
died.
God.
I just thought I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, this guy's gone through this much, and like we're surprised at the things he's done.
What's the name of like the one dad on Modern Family, the old one that's married to Sofia Vergara?
Jay, Jay?
Yeah,
Jay,
he's
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah.
It's basically like I don't remember. You ever remember like the episode where he talked about how like his dad died or whatever, and he like no sold his dad's death. He like didn't cry and all that. Like that's basically what's going on. For
yeah, that's
Vince
another thing.
McMahon.
Like that's another like generational thing. Like
Yeah.
back then, like I feel like if you cried for your dad, you were like banished.
You were a loser.
Repress your
Yeah.
feelings.
You were banished.
And so he gets this relationship with his father where he obviously says, "Fuck this trailer park in North Carolina. I'm going to work with my dad." And that's all that they would talk about from the ages of like 16 to, for the rest of his life with his father. They would only talk about work. And part of this documentary is not just, Vince McMahon. It's about the business of the wrestling business as a whole, how it evolved throughout back then to modern times, the course of the company and Vince's decisions. So if you actually want to be informed and all that, there's a lot of... I think the documentary spells out a basic understanding for a Netflix audience. If you're a wrestling fan, you're semi-aware of these things. And then as we progress through the documentary, it talks about, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, which, if you've been watching wrestling, you're aware of all these things. It's all very interesting, and it's a lot. It's a lot to go into. But,
and about the first episode,
did you guys hear that?
Yeah. What?
Did you guys hear it? My mom called in the middle of the podcast, so I wasn't sure what we were talking about.
You say,
"Hi, Mom."
Do you have issues
don't-
with your mother?
Yeah, do you have mommy issues like Vince McMahon?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, like Vince McMahon? Oh, that's crazy.
We should make a
bro.
6-part documentary about this.
All right. But can I, real quick about the first episode? There's
Go off, Queen.
I want to hit on a couple things, and if you guys want to talk about them, we can talk about them more. But I just want to mention them and just see what happens. So the two main things about. I don't know if they're revealed or if they were already. But the main thing is that comes up again later is how he formed the WWF. He
we got
basically stole other people's territory, which, capitalism, whatever. That's how it works. He had a better product. He stole their superstars. They would build the superstars, then he would steal them. He would steal their territory, and blah 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 blah. And then eventually it became the. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is because, and we'll talk about it later, but I just want to mention it because it's this episode. Later on, when they do talk about WCW and Hulk Hogan leaving, guys leaving, and it shows how fucking skewed this guy's worldview is. He starts complaining about Ted Turner's big pockets and his money, and he is doing the work to build the superstars up, and then Ted Turner just takes them away from him. And it's just ironic, going back to this episode, the very first episode, he shrugs all that off when it's him doing it. But when it's somebody else, he plays the victim, and he's it seems like he super feels that way, that he was the victim. But
100%.
He's just it's just a repeating cycle. It's all, you're doing it to each other. It's just bigger and bigger fish all the time.
Well, that specifically, he decided to, he decided to make the perception that way, because he knew that basically when he would take other people's talent, it was just him competing. But when it would be happening to him and he was losing, it was that he was a victim. And that's just that was on purpose to make himself the baby face, to make himself you're supposed to feel bad for him. That's by design. He kind of says that in the thing. Perception is reality.
I think Dave Meltzer or somebody says that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, also
go ahead, sorry.
I'm not on his side. I was saying, if that was happening to me, I would be pissed off, but I wouldn't be crying about it, because if I did the exact same thing, I would not be as how he was. So I disagreed with that. So I was like, bro, you did it too. Why are you mad?
Bro,
be better. And
that's all. That's it.
And eventually he did become better. I think him and Ted Turner are worth the same now. Or I think Vince is worth more.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that he really thought in his own brain that what he was doing to those territories is no, I wasn't taking their talent. In his brain, it's he wasn't stealing.
I was competing.
I was just competing. It's no, you were stealing, because your father made a pact with all of these people. And I'm not even saying that you need to follow that same logic because you want to do what's best for your business, but you have to own up to it. That's the biggest thing. You got to own up to it. And just real quick on his dad, his dad and the business itself, the fact that I don't even know what I'm trying to say in terms of his dad, but how he's Vince and him are so alike in terms of the business model, where it's everything will go out there, show must go on, all that type. But in the behind the scenes, his dad, the one thing was even though he didn't like these people, he was still loyal to the other territories and stuff like that. Whereas with Vince, I'm not even talking about WCW because WCW is trying to put him out of business. So fuck If I'm Vince, I'm going fuck WCW. Fair game. But when we get into the 2000s and you have shit like TNA and then there's Ring of Honor and shit like that, and Vince kind of looked down some of the time on these other companies, and if you wanted to go do a show at one of these companies and shit like that, he like was so disrespectful in a way. Like even the people that he would sign from these companies like Ring of Honor, he would kind of look at them and be like, just kind of like, whatever, like fuck you type.
I kind of disagree with you on this, Noel.
Honestly. Yeah, I agree.
Really?
They're competitors. I kind of get why he would. I actually think, if anything, this kind of help. The one thing that is shows him in a positive light is kind of how he treated ECW and like certain people. Like I feel like, yeah, they're competitors, but like I feel like to a certain extent he was like. He almost he talks about them like with like almost a little bit of, I don't know, what's the word? I guess, like he kind of liked what they were doing. He thought it was interesting, all that, but, you know, he wants to beat them. And
he funded them.
So,
he was funding them towards the end of 2001.
He was. It's just, sometimes when I look at what he does with, like, some of the wrestlers that...
Yeah.
Might be from like a WCW.
My question is, what wrestlers are you talking about that he did that to?
What about like most of the Alliance?
Like what with the when the WCW people came in, he kind of wanted them to be like, he kind of wanted to push them down a little bit, just so you'd be like, this is what happens when you kind of fuck with Vince type of situation. Like that's kind of touched on a little bit, not WCW per se, but how he's willing to punish people that very vindictive. Like he's able to, like he's like when CM Punk gets fired,
even with his victims that he abuses. But we'll talk about that later.
Like for instance, like for an example, like CM Punk gets fired, and it's like, okay, fuck AJ. We're going to go break her record, or, okay, Brock Lesnar leaves, Randy Orton has to win the championship, so Brock Lesnar won't have the record. But then there are people that are still in the company, like, we'll get to Owen Hart and all that, but then, you know, some people that might say no to a storyline, or might say, I don't know how I feel about that. And it's like, oh, really? How about you lose for the next fucking however... Yeah, like, you just lose for the next year because you said no to a storyline.
But we'll talk about that stuff, I guess. But I just wanted two more things from this episode that were pretty well. One of the main things it talks about are, you know, him fighting kind of Hulk Hogan and then forming WrestleMania. But the main thing that I thought was interesting was before he found Hulk Hogan, he kind of talks about wanting to give Dusty Rhodes the belt. I thought that was interesting. Is that something people knew about, or
before Dusty Rhodes was like a traditionalist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he didn't think like, basically what Vince McMahon's plan was to go into the other territories and compete, and basically did what he did. Dusty Rhodes didn't like that, so he didn't want to do it. Yep. But I'm pretty sure if Dusty Rhodes was into the spot of Hulk Hogan, he would have been just as big.
I disagree.
I don't think
he doesn't. Why doesn't? Because I know, wasn't Jimmy Snuka like really, really popular at the time?
Yeah, but
but then he killed
him. Murder.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He killed his girlfriend.
They talk about it.
So they don't even talk about this in the. Do they talk about it in the documentary?
Yeah, they reference it. They're like, they couldn't pick him because he had like just killed his girlfriend.
Also, like I saw a Vice documentary. Jimmy Snuka just had problems.
Yeah.
But they kept it very under wraps.
Yeah,
I think it's also the main thing too that they went with Hulk Hogan is that they were definitely marked. They had this design. I don't know why they say this. They say that like wrestling was played in like dark, smoky rooms, and it was meant for like old men. it was always a family-oriented audience that it was geared to. Like, you would have old ladies and like young children in a wrestling crowd back then. Like everybody bought into it. So they definitely were going to go for a more like marketable, child-friendly type vibe. And just the way that Dusty Rhodes was as like a wrestler was more like gritty and raw than
Was he?
Yeah.
The Dusty Rhodes I've seen is like he's dancing, he's doing the bionic elbow.
But he was also he wasn't afraid to get bloody and shit like that.
Yeah,
too.
like that's like you can't really do that in front of an audience of primarily.
Like, I get what you guys. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
He was like a wrestler, while Hulk Hogan was a German wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like with Hulk Hogan, like as like people can shit on Hulk Hogan now. Vince McMahon picking Hulk Hogan and being like, "You're going to be the face of this company, and you're going to be like the person that's going to hold the torch." He picked the perfect person, and I think
like Belichick drafting Tom Brady.
Yeah, like it's like the foresight to be like Hulk Hogan, you're the guy, and for Hulk Hogan to actually execute the way he did, I think it's like the perfect pairing, like of all time in like wrestling history.
Right.
Just because of like how.
Sorry, go finish what you're saying. I'm sorry.
I was just saying like I think it's just like the perfect pairing, like those two.
I'm gonna go on, like, I'm gonna continue what you're saying, because you guys can beat me up on this, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say it, bro. I'm gonna say what the people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
This documentary gave me a little bit more of an appreciation of Hulk Hogan. I might be going back on what I said. He is not a bum, like I said before. I kind of apprecited him more after this. Even though he is like kind of a snake and a fucking liar sometimes, and like all that shit, and he's just a bad person all around.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I really got from this that I was like, wow, just like how much of a fucking psycho hard worker he was. Like he's like the biggest guy in the company, and he literally is carrying this company on his back for like years. And going to all these shows, doing all these shows, he is the company.
He did fucking SNL
later on.
Yeah, with Randy.
Like,
so I think this documentary shines on him very lightly. Like it's not as mean to Hulk Hogan either.
Until the Hulk Hogan documentary comes out?
Yeah, because you can be fucking mean to Hulk Hogan because he's a piece of shit. But other than a few comments from like certain people, like it's obvious like the other guys don't really like him. And like they talk about the Jesse Ventura thing, union thing, like that was fucked up. He's a fucking idiot, first of all, but whatever. Because he's the richest guy and whatever. But he's the richest guy in the fucking company, and he's like, "Oh, you guys don't like that? How
you're gonna start a union, brother?"
Yeah, like you're working 300 days a year. Oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo.
Anyway, I went straight to Vince, and I said, "Hey, brother, we got a union up here.
I'm Hulk Hogan. I fucking make fucking $100 million, whatever.
I'm balding, and I'm gonna make it everybody's problem."
Anyway.
I am. I'm gonna make it myself.
Okay. So yeah, that's final thoughts on episode 1. It was basically like a good intro into Vince McMahon taking power in the WWE and a little bit of the 80s into 90s.
Oh, did they talk about WrestleMania 3 in that one, or was that the next episode?
I believe it's the next one because they're like building this up, and they're building up to the idea of WrestleMania and yada yada.
Well, actually, one more thing, I guess my final thought is, I thought it was interesting, because this is something I didn't know, how important Cyndi Lauper was in kind of getting a mainstream audience to watch WrestleMania. It's like kind of surreal how it just built off of this, getting marketing from an MTV show to what it is now. It's like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Cyndi Lauper.
And now Vince McMahon might be more famous than Cyndi Lauper. Might be.
Oh, dude, that's not even a question. If you say Vince McMahon...
I don't know. Don't be disrespectful. I think it might be a question, but yeah.
No, like, come on, dude. Vince McMahon is, like, still famous. Like, people like kids will know. Vince McMahon.
Kids will know to run away from him.
Don't disrespect the legend.
I'm
Cindy
not saying
Lauper's
she's not a legend.
yeah.
I'm just saying, compared to Vince, I think Vince is more like popular.
With men. Yeah, I agree with men.
So now we get into episode 2. This one is titled Heat, and I don't have notes for this episode, but I'm pretty sure this is about WrestleMania and the rise of the WWF as like a major national television wrestling product.
I think this is also the one they talk about steroids and stuff.
I do have notes. No, I think that's the third episode.
Good.
The second episode is, like I mentioned, Hulk Hogan and the Union. I mean, if you guys have anything to say about it.
I will say.
Okay. I do. I have a lot to say about that. First of all, what an idiot Hulk Hogan is. Like, I just couldn't believe that he's the one who... And also, I know Vince McMahon was saying that nobody really liked Jesse Ventura, but the fact that he even presented that idea was still good for wrestling. Like, people, like... I can understand me working 300 days a year because I go into an office and I'm on a laptop and I'm just doing work on a desk. But these people are, like, slamming their bodies on, like, a ring. They shouldn't be working 300 days a year.
Hot take.
Yeah, like... Oh,
like...
no.
Hot take.
Here we go.
They got paid enough in the 80s that they could afford their own fucking medicine.
Were they?
Yes! They were making... You know, like, yeah, I understand that Hulk Hogan was making, you know, like $100,000 or whatever in, like, 80s money per fucking month or whatever. But a lot of these guys, like, I don't think people truly don't understand. One of the impacts of, like telling people that wrestling is fake, like the WWE did, ruined the business for, like, everybody. And it lost so much money overall. Like, people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they were making, like in the 80s, Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express were making $150,000 a year in 1980, which is like an absorbent, you know, say it's $300,000 now or whatever in today's money.
What's the point you're trying to make?
They were making all collectively enough money that do you really need a union?
Okay, but that's not all the wrestlers. What about the lower card? Like, what about the people who aren't getting...
Listen, this guy is going to sit here and bang his drum for a union. But if we go into the later episodes, Bret Hart was wrong. Bret Hart was, it's my title. I'm taking it whenever. Okay, buddy.
All right, one is actual real life, like people's financial, like their families and their life. And
one is
a fake fucking championship in a fake...
Oh, it's still real to me, damn it.
Match.
Yeah, also, I don't know where, like, I understand what you're saying, Jimmy, like, oh, yeah, like, the Midnight Express is making, but, like, freaking the lower card people that you don't know right now didn't make that were wrestling on the card.
Let me stop it, because we're talking to Jimmy, we can't take anything he says seriously. This is the guy who bootlicks for fucking Dana White for the same fucking shit. We've had this argument. We don't need to hear your fucking opinion about it, bro. We're moving on. We're moving fucking on because that's bullshit, and it's still happening today with the UFC, and you're wrong. And it doesn't matter how many fucking, you know, whatever that fucking bonus they get for the best card of the night, how many of those he gives out, you're still robbing your fucking low fucking fighters. They're gonna have fucking CTE the rest of their lives, and you're not paying them enough money. Whatever, forget it. The next thing is WrestleMania 2, about how it was successful financially, but it really didn't live up to WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, they fucked up with that. I don't know why. Okay, I will say this. I can see where Vince McMahon was coming from. He was like, WrestleMania 1 was a huge success. How can I top this? And doing it at 3 arenas, I can see the vision. I just don't think...
Ahead of his time.
How would you say?
I said he was ahead of his time.
I can see what he was thinking, but I just don't think wrestling is something you could do that with. Because at all 3 places, you would have to have a main event that would draw people. You can't just have Hulk. I think that was the issue. Like, Hulk Hogan was only at 1 arena, and the other 2 didn't have anything. Like, you could do that today with wrestling. Like, you could have Cody Rhodes at 1 arena, you could have Roman at the other, and then you could have, like, Gunther or CM Punk at another one. You know what I mean? But back then, like, all the big stars, I'm pretty sure, wrestled in that 1 arena that Hulk Hogan was in.
Yeah. But also, the thing that they don't want to acknowledge is that it was it was him trying to one up everybody else, because I'm pretty sure Dusty Rhodes had done like a Starrcade or a Super Brawl or whatever that was in 2 cities like 4 months beforehand. So he just wanted to do 3 to like fuck the other guys. We're better.
Okay, it's called competition. I don't really understand what the issue is.
Needlessly doing 3 because your competition did 2. That's all I was trying to say.
Okay.
Then they talk about WrestleMania 3 and how he got there's a pretty interesting story about how he got Andre from the set of The Princess Bride. He goes to the set and he convinces him to do WrestleMania 3. He can barely walk or whatever. His back's all fucked up, but he gets him to do it.
Yeah, Andre the Giant by like I go to Crunch and there's like this guy who's really into wrestling and he's like almost 60 and he said Andre the Giant back in the day was like if he was in your town and he was wrestling, you pay top dollar to watch him. He was the original wrestling draw. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just sucks that like at that point his body was deteriorating and like they show it like in the match, like he can't move and Hulk's like fuck like if you go down like you're not gonna be able to get right back up.
Stay on the ropes, bro.
But I understand him going to Andre the Giant because it's like, all right, Hulk Hogan needs a big villain. Who can do it? Because Andre the Giant was a babyface, remember?
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about
his whole career.
Yeah.
And they were like, and it's kind of like, we'll talk about it later, it's kind of like a foreshadowing to what Hulk Hogan will do later in his career.
The other thing that's kind of in this part of the documentary talked about briefly is how WWF is just lying and they say Hulk slammed anybody or whatever. That's what I remember. Jimmy told me that when we were watching it.
But that's just wrestling.
Or that they never face each other and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all marketing, but it's just funny looking back on it. You know,
Dave Meltzer was like,
they just said it.
They just said it and they got away with it.
Yeah.
And apparently they sold 93,000 tickets, according to Vince McMahon, and Dave Meltzer doesn't agree.
77 or whatever. Like Dave Meltzer was pissed. Abner's guy.
I think you should. I think Abner should be the one after having a 30-minute hate video. I think that you should glaze this man because he kind of did a good job on the doc.
I'll admit it. Dave Meltzer, I've said this before. All right, Dave Meltzer as a wrestling historian is great. He's good. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to history. It's just his glazing of AEW that I hate. Okay, that's it. Yeah. But he did a great job in the documentary. I've seen on Wikipedia that it's really in the middle from the 78 to 93. It's really like 82 to 84, something like that, which is still like a big crowd for a wrestling event. So, I mean, either way, like even if it's 78, 93, or 84, like obviously WWE will say it's 93 so they can look good. Dave Meltzer is a wrestling historian, so I don't think it matters to him, but he still has to sell a magazine. So controversy creates money in his eyes. But either way, it's still like like almost 100,000 people watch wrestling. Like that's big in the 80s. It's not like today where like you have internet and everything. Like that's back in the 80s where you had to like market on TV, newspapers, billboards, and stuff, and they still got that arena almost at full.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys believe Hulk Hogan saying that they didn't know the finish for the match until Andre was like leg drop or whatever?
No,
like,
I don't believe him at all.
100% no.
Okay.
I do not believe him.
I thought it was the only one as I was watching. Like,
that's so funny. Nobody believed him.
I'm watching. I'm like, dude, no way Vince is allowing you two to go out there with no finish in fucking WrestleMania 3, knowing how much of a fucking psycho Vince is. No shot Vince is.
Yeah, the guy who didn't trust Bret Hart to leave without his title. Like,
well, that was before the double crosses.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But I mean, there's no way.
Man, is what you're saying? He was a more trusting.
Well,
man.
that was because that was before Alundra Blaze and all that other stuff. But there's no way that he's going up to Andre the Giant and going.
Is that in the next episode? The Alundra Blaze. Okay.
That's in the next
that's where
episode,
I got my notes at. So we're good for that. But
Okay.
There's no way, because he's like, yeah, I know you always wanted to be a bad guy. We're gonna let you be a bad guy. So that's how he sold Andre. But obviously, there's no way that they're gonna have their new shining star in Hulk Hogan, and they're gonna have the old shining star not hand over the torch, so to speak, to him.
Yeah, that was bullshit when he said we didn't know the finish.
You think? All right, my thing with Hulk Hogan is he's talking about how bad his back is, like Andre the Giant. So you think Andre the Giant's like, yeah, bro, I want the title with my bad back and carry it. No, you idiot.
He's like, I'm trying to go home.
Yeah, bro. Like he's like, I'm here for a check.
He kept asking. That funniest part too was that I kept asking Vince, and he just kept saying, "I got it." Did you talk? Did you talk to Andre? Did you talk to Andre? Like, come on, man.
Did you talk to the big man?
Let's be so for real. One of the things that I will say, this is before the advent of pay-per-view. And so they did they're always, one of the things that they talk about is that Vince does have like an eye for innovations in like pop culture. So like he's always got an eye on trends and all this stuff. And one of the things that they don't say beforehand is, before they do like WrestleMania and all this shit, they need like closed circuit. I forget what they call it, but basically like you would go to an arena and they would show the show in the arena, the closed circuit, whatever, capture or whatever. He did an Evil Knievel when he jumped over Snake Canyon or whatever. He was like one of the first people to do that.
Really?
Did jump over Snake Canyon?
Yeah, apparently it was like on closed circuit. He was like one of the first like people to get into that. He did he promoted a fucking when Muhammad Ali fought Antonio Inoki. He was involved in that as well.
Dude, can I say something? And this is gonna be crazy to say. I think if Vince McMahon never got into like wrestling, I think he would have still been like successful just because of in TV in general.
I think that he would have just been in North Carolina.
Because he had an easy foot in the door. His dad owned a company that was already on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he would have done.
Got his foot in the door any other way.
Because without his dad,
I don't know. But I mean, if you think about it, he is like, when it comes to like production and TV and stuff, he is like a genius at it.
I agree with you, because I mean, we'll talk about it in the later episodes when he comes up with the McMahon character. All that stuff is literally some of the best storytelling in any medium, like put to, on TV at all. Like, it's awesome, and he is a genius in a lot of ways, but there's lots of geniuses that never go on to do anything at all. Just don't have an opportunity. His dad literally owned a company, and he grew the company. It was not nearly as big as it was, but it is a way in.
Elon Musk be like, "Oh, I'm a poor guy, but my dad owns a diamond mine."
So the next part of this episode, and eventually, Abner, you're right, they start actually, but not yet. The next thing is they talk about Hogan struggling to keep popularity as a face, so they kind of introduce Ultimate Warrior. It doesn't really ultimately work out, and they kind of, I believe they give the title to Sergeant as a placeholder so they can give it back to Hogan.
Yep.
And they kind of tackle the ethical issues that came up with Slaughter at the time, where he was he turned like Iran. He was like or something.
That was such a crazy thing to do.
There's a lot of ethical questions that come up with.
They had to explain what a foreign menace is.
That is so funny to think about it, because Sergeant Slaughter he was in the military, and they were like, "Yeah,
you're gonna support Iran, brother.
Yeah, you're gonna be an Iran.
Listen, pal."
And I was like, and like that's one of the times I would have been like I would think like people would be like, "Is wrestling like fake?" Because Sergeant Slaughter has like family in the military.
But that's the thing. Well, he had to stop because his family kept getting death threats, so that's why he finally inevitably had to like.
You have to be honest.
They were like, "We need to stop this."
I think one of the most genius things McMahon ever did was tell the world that all that shit was, to an extent, it was like fake and like staged and all that. So, but the people that didn't figure that out before they told them,
Stupid.
You got to be a fucking idiot, bro.
Stupid.
Even I don't care if they're telling you it's real. You got to figure. I mean, I figured out Santa Claus was. You got to figure it out.
Yeah, but somebody told you.
No, I figured it out.
No, you figured it out.
It's not
Yeah.
hard to figure out Santa Claus isn't real.
You just got it hard. There are a lot of signs. The presents
Oh
are there.
yeah, oh yeah.
presents
So,
are there.
so if you stayed up all night on
Listen,
the
one
24th,
time when I was like
they-
when I was like 9 years old, I went to go piss at 3 a.m, and I'll admit, I looked downstairs and there was nothing, and I was like, all right, cool. So I'm like mid piss, and back in the day before we put in new carpet, if you stepped on like a certain spot on our floor, it would make like a noise. So I'm mid piss and I hear that spot and I'm like, oh my god. So I like paused the piss.
Did you have a dog?
Painful. It was painful. No.
Did
There
you
were
have
presents there.
Did
And
you?
you were
Santa's
like,
not real.
It
Tell me
was,
Santa's
it was
not
probably
real.
it was your dad. It was definitely your dad.
He put all of them right there in that very moment while I was mid piss at 3 in the
Yes,
morning.
that's literally what my parents did.
They woke up at 3 in the morning to put up presents?
Yes, that's
All
what
right.
Well, your parents are lying to you.
All right. All right. Let's
Anyway,
move on because
Vince McMahon.
we're only on episode 2.
Wait, what were we talking about before Jimmy interrupted us?
Oh, okay.
Ethics of Vince
Iraqis.
McMahon, Ultimate Warrior. But you're going to want to talk about the next thing most because there's a couple things that happen from here that are really big. This is one really big story of Vince McMahon. The next thing is all the steroid stuff and the whole steroid scandal, the bodybuilding, how he started the bodybuilding company, and then also we didn't talk about it separately or all together. There's the Ring Boy scandal on top of it, all kind of at the same time. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that stuff.
I mean, I can. What's the Ring Boys? The one where the guy accuses them of pedophilia ring or something?
Guys,
Yeah,
and
there's like 2
they were
executives or
firing.
whatever.
They were firing certain people because they didn't commit sexual acts.
Okay. All right. Well, so with that, I don't know what went on with. I don't know what the point was of bringing that up.
Yeah.
Because, I understand that happened, but was there any proof, or was that just speculation?
Even if it was, they were literally like, well, we fired them.
Well, no, I don't. I think you guys are wrong. I think it's valuable. I think it shows.
No.
his
I'm
character a lot.
not. I'm not saying
It's important in the
that
documentary.
there was no point. I'm saying because the guy who brought it up is Phil Munchnick, and he is notoriously known for hating wrestling and wrestling fans. So he's known for that stuff. So I'm just asking, was that proof? Does he have concrete proof? Because the allegations are serious, and if that happens, that happens. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it's just who it's coming from. It's Phil Munchnick.
Well, I think it's confirmed in the documentary. Well, they basically Vince McMahon. I think.
Oh wait, I know. Okay,
These two guys
I
definitely did it.
I remember now. It was
tried to clear the third guy. I forget his name.
It was Pat. It was
Pat Patterson.
Pat Patterson. Okay, no. I understand that. Okay, yeah. All right, no. I think that happened. I think this is where Vince McMahon has to separate himself from the business, and he just doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is one of those times he should have. But apparently everyone said Pat Patterson didn't do anything. It was the other guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just confused because I forgot.
I think it's the best part of this documentary is when Bret Hart weighs in on something because it's always I think he's even you know what, that shit probably definitely was going on. It's fucked up.
You'll have all the talking heads trying to.
That probably did happen. I just didn't see it, but I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. That sounds exactly. I think that's exactly.
I think. Oh, another thing he said was, and this was so funny. This was episode 1. He said, "I love Vince McMahon and what he's done for me," but he has issues. I thought that was
he fucking is a liar.
Yeah, he's I respect Vince. I love him to death. He's a great guy, but he has lied to me professionally on so many levels. I was what?
Just fuck Vince. He's fuck Vince, but thank you at the same time.
Yeah, he was listen, Vince, I love you. You're my guy. Fuck you.
Yeah.
There's also a part where they talk to Jimmy Hart, and they're kind of asking him about the various scandals, and he like freezes up and he doesn't know what to say and what not to say. He's like really like, what can I say? He's like the one person who didn't have some questions about it.
Yeah, but with that, with the ring boy thing, that's messed up. So that sucks. But I wanted to talk about more the bodybuilding thing.
Yeah.
Like the steroid stuff.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Him going into the bodybuilding like industry would have been fine if it was his only focus. You know what I mean? But since he was also running wrestling, like it was hard. Because I mean,
You know
think about it.
I was
Like
gonna
his
say,
promotion.
No, I was gonna say, like, to be honest, I think he could have done both. It was just the timing when he wanted to do the bodybuilding thing. The steroid scandal came out, and he was like, "Well, fuck, I can't do it now." Like, I just think the timing was so bad.
Yeah.
And another thing with the steroid scandal, like even the wrestlers were saying like that, like no one sold us. Like I mean, obviously they got it from somewhere, but they were saying like nobody in the company sold us steroids. Like we did it. We did it before we started wrestling. We were just like this is just how it is.
Also, we wanted to be. They were like they noticed the trend. Like the main event guys are all on steroids.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah, and I mean again that comes with the timing. Like
yeah.
like the generation, because even like big movie stars were on steroids. You have to look a certain way to make like to generate money. So I don't blame them for taking steroids. It is what it is. But like just the fact that like people were saying it's bad to take steroids, and I'm like yeah, but I think it's more steroid abuse is bad. I think that's what the issue was. But in the documentary, it was like I thought they were just saying taking steroids is bad. I'm not saying I'm on steroids. I don't even know where to get steroids. I'm just saying I don't think it's bad to take steroids because I've taken steroids for my back and stuff, and it's fine. But like to work out,
Cheater.
Whoa.
Well, that's
Juicer.
also this
Juicer.
is 2024 medicine. They were injecting fucking
yeah, and I
bull
that's what I'm
testosterone
saying.
right into their nuts.
No, what I'm saying is like I don't know if Phil Mushnick said that it was like steroid abuse that was ruining it or just steroid in general. If people were just taking steroids and not abusing it, I think it was fine. It's just steroid abuse is where the problem is what I'm saying.
I think that you have to abuse steroids in order to get your body into that shape.
Do you? Are you?
Like I'm not
sure?
I'm not going to say that I'm a steroid expert, but you have
I think
to be.
you are. I think that's exactly what you're saying.
Because I am obviously cut out of marble.
You are. I've
Greek
seen
god.
you. I've seen you naked.
Adonis, Hercules, who is he? But like you have to use a large amount of steroids in order to not only maintain those physiques, but to achieve that physique. And the funniest thing about it is that this is back in the day where people thought wrestling was real, so it actually was like, and a state athletic commission would show up. Like there are stories of Ric Flair. You would have to actually do like cardio tests, and you would have to like the doctor would have to look at you, so he would be doing like burpees and like sprinting on a treadmill to like prove that he was in like fighting shape. So like these things happen, and they had a physical like an elected representative from Pennsylvania who was a doctor to like come over to these things and like make sure that the people were all good, and he was ended up selling them steroids, and I believe he got like 6 years or something, and he just lived the rest of his life. But
I also think like once Bret Hart said, "Yeah, Vince never told us to use steroids. It was just kind of common sense just by looking around in the locker room." I was like, okay, so Vince didn't sell steroids. Like once he said, because Bret Hart is not afraid to be like, Vince did that shit. But like,
surprisingly, Bret Hart did not talk shit about Goldberg.
It wasn't relevant, I don't think.
It wasn't relevant, yeah.
No, he sometimes brings that shit up out of nowhere.
Oh, I know he hates that man.
Cut it out. You don't know.
That's very true. But also,
he definitely did and they had to cut it out.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
The steroid stuff was like not a big like. I think it was that that fucking what's his name again? Abner, the fucking Phil Mushnick. Yeah, I think it was just him being like, just kind of like a dickhead in the sense of like, I don't like wrestling. I think this is grotesque. Let me try to spin something. Because there was that woman that was filing that it was like that woman referee that had an issue.
Yep.
And I think that should have been more of an issue at the time, rather than fucking
Chatterton thing.
I thought that's what started it. I thought that he kept talking about that, and then like that came from that somehow. I forget what they say in the
Wait, what? What are you talking about? What female referee?
The referee that Vince McMahon like. Also, okay. I'm gonna have another hot take here. All right. So if you're a female referee, again in the '80s, and a Hulk Hogan is getting paid like $100,000. Vince McMahon comes up to you and says, "Hey, you're a great female referee. Sign this contract, and you can have $500,000 a year." And then he goes, "All right, but you kind of also have to like suck my penis."
What is happening?
What the fuck are you about to say?
That was that situation.
What are you? Okay, what are you saying though? Like, what are you?
Why
There's no way. There's no way that you're like signing. There's no way that you're signing that contract not knowing that there's something weird going on.
Maybe she did it.
How are you getting paid $500,000 to be a referee?
Okay, and
there's just like you gotta use your brain a little bit.
Are you just?
So you literally victim blaming right now.
I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying
it is not legal to pay someone $500,000 to suck your dick.
No, I'm not saying. I am not saying that.
No,
that's legal. I'm saying that if you are that person, you are working for the company. You're a referee. The owner of the company comes up to you and says, "Hey, man, you're doing great. I want to give you more money than anybody has ever gotten in wrestling." You think that there are no strings attached to that?
You know the only person stupider not to see that coming? Someone who would say no to $500,000.
Yeah, she probably thought she was like, "Oh, this is like I'm just doing a good job."
Do you not understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying, well, you're saying she's stupid. It's stupider if she didn't take the money.
Yeah, like she
and
might have
still
just
doesn't
thought,
make
like,
it okay that he's.
That doesn't make it okay at all. And
but I'm saying it doesn't matter if she should have saw it coming. Whatever. Why would she say no to them?
Yeah, why would
offered her the money?
You're
gonna be like, no, because I have a weird vibe. I'm not gonna take $500,000 in 1980.
What Jim is trying to say, he has foresight.
If somebody came up to you right now, if your job if your job came up to you right now and they're like, hey Ab, you're doing really good at what you're doing. We're gonna pay you $10 million now. You're thinking you're not getting flown out to a freak off?
No, I hope not. Why are you thinking of freak off? What is going on today?
I hope I'm not, but like I would still.
What is this conversation?
Anyway, the last few things on the episode are WCW begins to take off when Hulk Hogan departs from WWF and joins WCW. Hulk Hogan gets a huge contract. Vince McMahon feels betrayed. It was Shane McMahon says Hogan showing up in WCW was a slap in the face.
I think so.
Hogan also testifies for the steroid trial. It surprises everyone. He's the star of the show. Everyone's surprised because Hogan did it out of the goodness of his heart, not because he just is. But anyway, that's all for that episode.
So I think the slap in the face was more so Vince just never thought that the guy who was his biggest star would leave for the competitor.
Yeah.
I think that was more it. I don't think it was like, oh dude. Like I don't think it was I think they made it a big deal, and I can see where Shane McMahon's coming from because obviously it's obviously against his dad. But at the same time, it's kind of like if the Eagles signed like Zeke to be like their third down back in the goal line because it's freaking Ezekiel Elliott and he's getting paid more money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just like they're just doing it. They just did it to do that, to like get another star into the company to like compete with what's his name with Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing wrong with what WCW did. So I did think they overreacted to, oh, well, that was a slap in the face, you know? And I'm like, no, I mean, I guess it is, but at the same time, Hulk Hogan's a grown ass man. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Facts. Like it's a slap in the face in the sense of like, oh, maybe you should have talked to Vince about it first, but at the same time, like like you said, like Hulk Hogan's a grown ass man. Like he can do whatever he wants. It's not that big of a deal.
Also, Hulk Hogan even says it like it's more money, it's less dates, and he has 2 kids that are growing up. He wants to be in their life, and if this contract allows him to do that, and Vince's didn't, obviously he would take that. At the end of the day, say what you want about Hulk Hogan, but at least he thought about his family for once.
For once.
Yeah, so like at least he thought about them. So I agree with what Hulk Hogan did. I think it was the right decision. If someone's going to pay you more money to work less, you take that. I want to take that now. If someone can pay me more money to work less, I would do that. But that's not how life works. I wasn't talented enough.
You just need to become a wrestler.
Yeah, I just can't become. But yeah. So like, I agree with that. And then what was the other thing they said? What was the other thing you said, Robbie? After Hulk Hogan signing,
it was like him testifying in court and all that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
that was the whole next episode.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the whole next? I thought that was this episode.
They give you the beginning of it where they go, they give you the beginning of the steroid trial, and they're talking about that a little bit. But the state's primary witness is Hulk Hogan, and so he talks a little bit about before he was about to go on, and the episode ends just as he's about to start testifying, and so episode 3. Screw job is
okay. They start with the trial.
They start with I thought they started with Wendy Richter.
Oh yeah, they started with that because I think Wendy Richter refused to lose the title.
Yes, so they start with a botched screw job.
That was crazy. I never knew that. That was something.
No, I knew that. And I mean, I think the issue is it just shouldn't. I don't know why it even came down. I just don't know why it came down to it. I don't know if anybody else does. I just never knew why it came down to doing that. I knew she didn't want to lose the title, but I don't know why or like what was the point of holding on to it.
After WrestleMania, where she was, she basically got like a huge like star boost off of being. I'm sorry, what's the musician's name again?
Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, Cyndi Lauper. Like, also, I don't think she personally requested her, but that's just me. After that happens, she's the champion, and she kind of got like too much of an ego. I think, in my opinion, from my looking into it, and yeah, they were like, "All right, you need to lose the belt," and she was just like, "No, no." And the funny thing about that is,
was she like leaving the company, or was she staying still?
No, I think they just said like, "I'm not doing this." Like she's just like, "I'm not losing." And so if you see in that's like its own incident. So if you watch the documentary, if you know of the incident, she's wrestling like a Spider Woman, like it's a
it's
like
Fabulous Moolah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be advertised. Like she thought when Wendy Richter stepped into the ring, she thought it was a different person under there, and she said that she didn't know. But the thing is, it was the Fabulous Moolah who also trained her.
Yeah. So
like you should have like known that something was up there, and basically what happens is that they explain at some point in the match there's going to be some sort of close call, and so when Moolah goes to do like a small package, the ref just goes 1, 2, 3, and she basically just like accepts that she just got fucked. She was like, okay, and just like left, like never wrestled for the WWF again.
Yeah, but what is she gonna do?
She was like, I respected him for it, actually.
No, but like, what my question would be like, what can she do in that situation?
I don't know. I guess it's. I'm not too sure actually. I when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, like you just kind of got fucked and you just like took it. Even like today when she's recounting on it, she was like, yeah, he got me.
Jimmy, you have to let Noel back in, I think.
He is.
Yeah, he's in.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I'm here. No, but I don't dude. I don't think she could have really done anything. Again, it was like the '80s, and it was a woman in wrestling. So think about it that way.
It's thinking about it, It's never been a good time to be a woman in wrestling, except for maybe 2 years ago.
What about 2019 when the main event of WrestleMania?
Mm, Where's Charlotte now?
She got hurt.
Exactly.
What does that have to do with where she is now?
Your mom. Anyway, back to the documentary. We go back and Hulk Hogan is testifying in the courtroom, and it turns out that plot twist. Once Hulk Hogan secured immunity, he basically went on to say exactly what we all just went over, that Vince McMahon did not distribute or sell steroids to any of the wrestlers, mostly just due to the misconception that the state had about wrestling as a whole. So Vince wins the lawsuit, or the court case. I don't know if it was like a lawsuit or a court case, but that resulted in a lot of changes in the WWF from the 80s of these dudes being these big jack guys to the new generation of wrestlers like Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels. These new guys come in as WCW starts taking the top stars of the WWF, like Randy Savage, for example. Lex Luger appears on Nitro. And it goes into a little bit about the early Monday Night Wars of WCW and Raw having their 86 weeks of where WCW would just shit on the WWE. There's a lot of other things that kind of happen in between, like Alundra Blaze. Also, that was also like a big one that like really stuck in Vince's craw when Alundra Blaze showed up on TV and threw the women's belt in the trash. That was kind of crazy.
Why it's arguably, well, it's probably, I think he says it's why he did the screw job, because he was afraid that would happen again.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of that early stuff. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say something about the trial.
Mm-hmm.
Vince and I think his family and like some of the people in the documentary say Vince McMahon had like neck surgery, so that's why he had the neck cast. Mm-hmm. But other people were saying, "Oh, he had it on to get sympathy," and I'm like, I don't think he did. I think he actually did,
man.
He did.
Yes, he did. That is so.
Perception is reality.
He absolutely. I don't necessarily think he didn't have neck surgery. Definitely scheduled strategically.
Yeah.
Dude, like, all right, if that's true, go. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely. That's so on brand.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of these choices that he's done throughout the course of his history has been calculated. When WCW steals his talent, he's the victim. But when he stole everybody else's talent in the territories, he's competing. He literally tries to spin everything in a way that benefits the company, his public image, or like whatever he's favorable to. He's always done that. But so a majority of this stuff happens. We get into some other, WCW stuff with like the billionaire Ted stuff, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall leaving, the curtain call, yada yada. But the main bit about this, and the thing that I think we're going to be discussing a lot about, is obviously the Montreal Screwjob, an event in which basically...
Well, we should talk about the curtain call too, because that's kind of important too.
It is important. You want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah, because like Triple H and Shawn Michaels both say like I kind of agreed with them. The curtain call was kind of important because like back when they did it, like that's when Dave Meltzer and like the dirt sheets were out. So like people like were smartening up and knew like wrestling isn't real. So when they did that, technically he had permission to do it. So it wasn't like he didn't. But Triple H getting punished led to one of the biggest stars being born. So so like that actually happening was one of the biggest moments in wrestling, because not only did one future star and eventual guy who runs the company got punished, but your biggest star ever was born out of because of that, just like a year later. But yeah, I thought the current call was important.
The part that like the fact that they kind of got permission, like Sean got permission from it, like from Vince to do it in a sense. I like the curtain call, like the people that were pissed off about it. Shut the fuck up, please. Like,
yeah, like the Undertaker, like the Undertaker's my goat, but I'm like, bro, Undertaker, like, come on, man.
What
Like, come
are
on.
you guys talking about?
What do you mean?
It's not, well, one, it's not good. It's like a not good thing for the history of wrestling. Like to do it at the time. I understand that I understand that the after effects are a net positive to wrestling and entertainment as a whole. But to like go out there, I don't know if like there's ever been an example of like a movie where like two actors like got together and they're like, "Duh, we're actors in a movie."
That's really
no, it's completely different. It's all right. Hold on. Let me do that.
Okay,
because you're a fucking idiot, Jim. Because you're comparing something. It's not the same. Because they still keep kayfabe. That's the whole point of why it's okay. Like the whole idea when you go to a movie, they're not like it's not like Blair Witch, where Blair Witch they're pretending it's a fucking documentary. Like that's what the WWE was before. They're pretending it's a fucking documentary. It's not. It's a movie. When you go to a movie, you know you signed up. You know, hey, this is fake. I don't care. I'm going to sign up for this because I want to be entertained. I want to go on the ride. I want to see the story. I want to see where they take me with this. You know when you buy the ticket that it is not real. It is not reality. You want to see the story anyway. You want to see what they do. So it's not the same as two actors going on the screen going, "Oh, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake." I get the curtain call itself, but like even that, it's like so subtle. It's like not like really. It's like a little meta, and it kind of winks at the audience, but it's not like so obvious to where it's like you're saying, where it's two actors like going.
Well,
like,
okay,
oh,
maybe I'm also a little bit confused on the context.
It was necessary for the business. So it could expand and get bigger and get better.
Maybe I'm
honestly,
confused. It was not necessary to expand
hampering
the business.
them.
No,
it was hampering them. It was hurting them. They could only do so much when you're pretending it's real for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Like nobody cares if it's real. You know,
I don't think that's the context of the time. I think at the time when you would go to a show, you would perceive it to be as real. And it was like
that doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's right, and that's the way it should be.
But it's that the perception of it was perceived as real, and yes, there were a small audience of internet people.
That's not reality. That's why it's necessary. Why are you pretending it's real? It's not.
I understand that it's not real, but I'm saying in the time, in the context of the moment, the majority of people still perceived it as a real sport, as a real competition. And now you can correct me if I'm wrong about
there are people who still believe in Santa Claus.
I understand that, but I'm telling you that at the time, that's just how the people were. But
what is that? What is your point? What does that get? What? So they're not supposed to do it because they need to protect your precious fucking ignorance.
I'm not really sure where you're trying to go with this, but I'm just saying I thought that it was.
I get what Jimmy's saying. Jimmy's saying at that time people didn't know it wasn't real, but I thought they did because in the trial they had to admit that wrestling isn't real.
Yeah, like we said earlier, if they didn't figure it out by then with how obvious it was, I mean, like they're idiots, Frank. Like honestly.
I think you're insulting a large amount of people.
Good. I hope they're insulted because if any of them are listening,
no, not our viewers.
Your old asses are fucking idiots. You are absolutely stupid, and you don't know fucking anything.
You don't know ball. But I thought it was that they were two good guys and two bad guys, and that was the whole point. Is that you would have these guys, they would compete against each other, and they would fucking hate each other because they would be good guys and they were bad guys, and for them to just all come in the ring and they were all hugging and kissing and we're all friends. Actually, JK LOL, you're all stupid.
Wasn't it under the pretense that they're leaving and this is their final match in the WWF, and it's
did they advertise that
kind of respect? Fans? But everybody knows that it is.
Is what?
That it is their last match. Like they're not coming back. They're going to WCW.
No, I don't think they knew that. I don't think they.
The wrestlers did. That's what I'm saying.
I thought you meant like the crowd.
No, I mean, but fuck the fans. It doesn't matter. They're gonna figure it out. When the guys aren't there the next week, then now we know.
So then inevitably, if they don't care, then why did it need to happen? Because the wrestlers wanted it to happen?
Yes, that's exactly what they said. They wanted to give them, they wanted to show them their respect, basically, before they leave for good.
They couldn't fucking suck each other's dicks off in the back. They had to do it in front of an audience.
They wanted the audience to have a chance to see them show sign of respect, whatever it is, bro. But the point I have is, you're acting like it's this horrible thing. It's a travesty. It's 9/11 for wrestling. No, it really is not a big deal at all. And you're being dramatic. It really, honestly, if anything, it was good for the business. And
because you at the time you didn't know the effect that it was going to have. If you had to look at that and purely in a vacuum, you didn't know that Stone Cold was going to be a thing, and yada yada.
You see, you just hate Triple H. If you're going to call
I'm not
Vince
saying
McMahon
anything about it. I didn't say
all this shit he does, that he didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but it worked out for him. Triple H is a fucking genius, because him and Shawn Michaels are genius, because they fucking were like, you know what, we should just acknowledge everything, scripted and staged, because it's going to be better in the long run. And it was, and they were, so they're a genius.
Okay.
Shout out to Triple H.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. We all know.
The GOAT.
I guess the curtain call was important though. It had.
It's important.
It was an important moment in wrestling. It was one of.
I know the old school wrestlers were like, guys, we're ruining kayfabe, but think about it now. Now they kind of use it for drama. You'll hear these dirt sheets say, "Oh, backstage, Roman Reigns doesn't want to lose the title, but is forced to," and then you see the next pay-per-view and he doesn't lose the title because they kind of use that the perception. Now they're kind of blurring the perception still because you don't know what's really going on backstage. Backstage something can we know it's fake, but backstage they can be real beef. You know what I mean?
Add another dimension to the storytelling. It's it makes it way more interesting.
They were when they said what they said, they were so right. I was like, holy shit! No wonder Triple H is in charge, because Triple H understands. That's why he's always doing social media and stuff. He understands right now social media will probably be the biggest thing that wrestling. That's why he went to Netflix. Think about it.
WWE Speed taking over X.
So he knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. But anyways, let's talk about the screw job.
Woo! All right, let's talk about the screw job, because I'm sure we're all going to agree.
Yeah.
So Bret Hart holds the big title for the WWE, and due to things like Lex Luger leaving and all that, a lot of the big stars are all jumping ship to WCW, and there were concerns about Bret Hart doing the same.
There was no concerns. He was going to WCW. They literally say in the documentary that Vince McMahon gave him a 10-year deal, but he couldn't afford it anymore because the company was losing money. So he showed Bret Hart loopholes to get get more money from WCW. He basically helped Bret Hart get more money from WCW.
Nice guy, Vince. Nice guy.
No, he's not a nice guy. But the issue is, Bret Hart, they knew when Bret Hart was losing. Bret Hart was the champion at the time, and he didn't want to drop the belt to Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels himself has admitted, yeah, I was a dick back then. I understand why. But at the end of the day, this is my thing. If Vince McMahon, the owner of the company, he's still giving you you're still under his company, and you're still it's still his name on the paycheck that he signs to you. At the end of the day, I know you don't want to lose it to Shawn, but if Vince McMahon is saying, "Hey, lose it to the guy who's going to be the number one guy after you on the pay-per-view," because that's what pay-per-views were back then too. They were the major storytelling. That's what the storytelling led to. Drop the title to him. That's the only thing. I don't know. Like, there's been a lot of stories that like Bret Hart would have done it the next day on Raw because he didn't want to do it on Smack. He didn't want to do it in Canada
Montreal.
or
Yeah.
something like that. There's other stories that he just didn't want to do it at all, and that's why the screw job. They don't ever specify what the real reason was. They always just say that it was happening because Bret Hart was leaving for WCW. But they knew that. Like, they helped him go to WCW. The only thing that gets blurred is, was it because he didn't want to lose to Shawn, which Bret Hart himself said, or no? That's what Shawn Michaels said. Bret Hart himself has said that I would have lost it the next day to Shawn at Raw, but just not in Canada. And if that's the case, sure. But I don't think if that. But if that was the case, I don't think
Vince
Vince
couldn't
McMahon
trust
would have
him.
done this. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Vince
Vince
McMahon would have
couldn't
done.
trust. Like, the whole thing is that Vince really just couldn't trust anyone in that moment, because you got to think, like, NWO's cooking, WCW's cooking. They're stealing every single bit of talent. He can't trust Brett, even though in a way he should. But, like, I think, like I said, I remember like talking to you guys like a couple of days ago about it, and I said that I understand both sides, because all Vince really had to do was be like, you know what, we'll give it to like Undertaker, we'll give it to Mankind, and then we'll give it to Shawn. It's kind of similar to how he gave the title to Sergeant Slaughter, knowing that he's going to give it to Hulk Hogan, the transitional champ.
Yeah, but
But
I think you're. I mean, I know you're saying those two names, but I don't think you could have given it to the Undertaker back then, because I think
well,
the Undertaker lost it to Brett because of like. I
yeah,
know what
you're
you're
right.
trying to say, but I think Shawn and Brett were in a story already because of SummerSlam. That's why. Like, it's kind of like Drew and CM Punk right now. Like, it was like a long term story. It was just the timing of the contract came down to it, and it just
I'm,
happened to. I think they were in a story already. Is what I'm saying.
I know. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm just trying to look. I'm looking at it from Brett's perspective, but at the same time, if I'm Vince, I'm going like, look, this is my company. This is the biggest star. Just fucking go with it. It doesn't matter. Like, it's. I understand you don't want to lose to Shawn in Montreal, in your hometown, but man, it is what it is. At the end of the day, like, it's not that deep.
His hometown is Calgary, buddy, not Montreal. You're a
Whatever.
racist.
It's
You're
about
a
being
racist.
Canadian.
Are you no, are
It's
you
about
from New
the
York, Noah? Are you from New York? No, you're not, buddy. Get it right. Our Canadian fans are going to be very upset if you do that again.
Well, I mean, that was like the whole point, though. Like, he was the hero in Canada, and Montreal, Toronto, and Ontario are big like wrestling markets
But
up there.
also, people don't realize this. In that, like, I think Shawn was like a face in the company, but whenever it's in Canada, they flipped it. So Shawn was the heel, and
Mhm.
Brett was the face.
I
Sean
just
could have they could have like turned Sean into a bigger heel if he lost it there anyways. He's losing it to he's beating the hero. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I just think in this, the screw job in a way just kind of comes down to Brett taking himself a little bit too serious,
I mean, he always takes himself a little too serious. But
because it's like, bro, you could have just lost it, man. No one would have looked at you any differently if you would have won, or
Yeah,
if
and
you would
also
have
at
lost.
that
Like,
time
it doesn't matter.
people were like with WCW, people were kind of like people were finally smarting up and were like, oh, this is a business, like it's fake, like you know what I mean? So if they saw you lose, people would have been like, "Oh, he's going to WCW. That's what's happening." And then when you show up, they're like, "Oh, he's still wrestling. He can still." So I mean, I necessarily don't disagree with Bret Hart for his reasons, but I
Yep.
also don't agree with them. I'm like, there could have been a rational thing that could have led to a better outcome than the Montreal screw job, because not only did the screw job, also funniest thing I've seen in that documentary after the screw job, Triple H gaslighting his wife. That was hilarious. He was like, I swear to God, I had no idea. I had no
Triple
idea.
H was Triple H kind of came off a little bit. Not, I don't even like. I'm still Team Triple H, but like, he kind of came off a little bit as an asshole in this documentary. Sometimes, like, he came like, who gives a fuck? Like, it is what it is. And the fact that
Yeah,
he
but
was the one,
I understand what he's saying though, because he's like, yeah, I
I do
mean,
too.
it is what it is. It happened. Like I can't change it.
Can I
don't
put
think this.
forward a theory?
What's your theory?
Okay, so Abner was saying, what were you saying? Something about
You cut off, or my something happened.
No,
but
he
I
cut
didn't-
off. He cut off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I said I was trying to think of what Abner was saying. Start this something about Shawn Michaels, but basically what I thought was my kind of feeling about it is that this was all kind of like where you said he could have lost this was what Shawn Michaels could have lost it on Monday, after the pay-per-view. Brett wins in Canada. He gets what he wants. Shawn gets what he wants. He wants the title. And Vince gets what he wants. The title to somebody else. But what if Shawn, because he says himself he was an ass and he has a big ego and all that. What if he felt like that was beneath him. He wanted to win at the. And so Triple H, trying to help his friend, comes up with this idea. Hey, Vince, it's your title. Take the fucking title off the guy. And Vince thinks, you know what? I could do
You're
it
right.
Monday, but what would be greater TV?
I'm just gonna be
Yeah.
muted for a
The
second.
curtain call happened, all that.
Yo,
I could do it Monday, and no
that's
drama,
a fucking
nothing.
great theory.
Or I could fucking screw the guy over. I know him. He's gonna have a big reaction. It's gonna be a fucking shit show, and then I can drag this story out after he leaves for the next year, 6 months, whatever.
That's a great theory. Do you think like someone like? Do you feel as though like Shawn Michaels is kind of worried about his public perception, so he'll never say that? While
Yes.
Triple H was like,
Yes.
H is like, I'm so comfortable of who I am that I'll bite the fucking bullet and admit that I came up with the idea.
Yeah,
like,
but
I don't
only
care.
so far, because Triple H, I mean, he obviously didn't say, "Hey, Shawn didn't want to lose on Monday." Like, so if it's true, they're only to an extent. I'm sure Triple H doesn't care saying it's his idea. That's pretty interesting that it was his idea, and it kind of, to me, that's what started me down this road. Why would he suggest that?
Right? Yeah.
And Bret Hart wouldn't really. He wouldn't really be in on why it would have happened. They wouldn't, obviously, but he also wouldn't put forth that theory because then he would have to admit, yeah, I really didn't want to, because I don't think he wanted to lose Shawn, but also he didn't want to lose in Canada, blah, blah, blah. And he would have to kind of admit to being a little selfish and a little, narcissistic, because he has an ego too, so.
I know what you're saying, and I get that it was Triple H's thing, but Jim Cornette, I don't think he was in the documentary at all. There was another documentary about the street job.
He said that he did it.
He's the one who said that it was his idea to do it.
Well,
So that's why
4
I'm
different
saying,
people
all
have
these-
claimed that privilege.
Yeah,
but
all these we don't know the real we don't know what actually everyone's saying a different story about what happened. But at the end of the day, surprisingly, Vince is the only one saying, "Yeah, I had to screw him because I was scared he would take my title to W." He's the only one who's truthful about why he did it.
Yeah, but you're saying he's truthful, but you don't necessarily. Again, we've established this guy lives in his own region.
Yeah,
it's his truth.
Like in all honesty, it probably could have been Monday, and just as well you could lose on a Sunday. Well, you could also fucking win on a Monday. Shawn, fuck you. Like you're gonna win. You're gonna take this title.
Jim, real quick, can you go into, because you were very hard, can you go in on Bret Hart and his serious tone throughout the documentary real quick? I just kind of want to hear what you have to say about Bret Hart.
I mean, he always any interview that he's always done, he always has to. He feels like he has to bang his own drum because the WWE will not acknowledge to the extent that he wants his greatness. Like people on the internet and I feel like fans universally will all agree that Bret Hart was an amazing wrestler, and he is an innovator in the sport. But it seems like any interview that he's had over the past 30 years has been Goldberg fucking sucks. I am an artist. I'm not a wrestler. I am an artist. I make art. And that the WWE stole the idea of a ladder match and gave it to Shawn. Shit like that. I feel like he always does have a too serious tone to whatever he does. Now, when it comes to the actual like screw job thing, I think he earned that uppercut. He earned that shot that he gave to Vince. That was earned.
What about the part where like when they like kind of introduced Bret Hart as like the main like one of the main guys, like as the new like face when everyone starts to leave, when Bret Hart kind of goes you'll never see Bret Hart in a hotel room with minors or some shit like that, or underage girls.
Yeah.
Like he says,
he fucking.
You could have left that one out, Bret.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Bret Hart got the title in the first place because he was the safe choice. He did not. He did not do steroids. He did not drink. He did not do drugs. Meanwhile, like, I'm not gonna personally say like I know exactly who is drinking and whatever. But that was like notorious back then. Like they explain a little bit when you're working that many hours. Like they would work 7 days a week. They would have matches. Sometimes they would have like 2 or 3 matches in a day. So a lot of these people were like fucked up on painkillers and they would get fucked up on alcohol. But for whatever reason, Bret Hart is just simply built different. Maybe it's like the maple syrup in his blood. But he was just that guy that was the safe option to lead forward in this new era. But because business took a downturn, they also started to look at like other people besides Bret Hart to go with. But the thing was too is that they don't like put a timeline on it, but Survivor Series was that match. Survivor Series in '97 or whatever when it was in Montreal. That was in August. Okay, August.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it?
No, it was in November. Survivor Series has always been in November. It's like a Thanksgiving thing.
Yeah, it's like a Thanksgiving tradition type fucking pay-per-view.
Maybe that's when he started in the WWF. Either way, he could have dropped
What are
it
you
on a Monday.
talking about? What are you talking about?
He could have dropped it on a Monday. That's all I had to say.
You really don't like Bret Hart, do you?
No, I was literally just glazing him. I had his cock in my mouth.
My opinion on Bret Hart is that he's a great wrestler. I hate the fact that people say he doesn't have as much charisma. Like he just had enough charisma to be the top guy. I thought he was a pretty cool dude. I like the commercial where it's like, is that Bret? It's like the little kid goes, is that Bret Hart? He turns around, yeah. And like I always thought that was cool. Bret Hart in the '90s was my favorite. Like from the '90s when I watched the WWE Network.
Mm-hmm.
Like a few years ago, Bret Hart was like my favorite because I thought he was just cool. Like he wasn't like corny.
Yeah.
But he was good. Like, you know what I mean?
The Hitman.
He wasn't corny like Lex Luger. He was cool.
Yeah. One of the things they talk about.
He's a guy about morals, but he wasn't a fucking cornball. Like eat your vitamins.
He wasn't a dirtbag, but he was also not like a lame.
He was also marketable to an extent when they figured out how to make those pink like sunglasses, and he made millions off those sunglasses.
There's a freaking hockey team named after him.
Actually?
Yeah. There's a hockey team in Canada. I think it's like it's like a minor league team or like a developmental team called the Hitmen.
Oh, shout out to Bret Hart.
Bret Hart's tough. And I agree on his takes with Goldberg. Yeah. Fuck Goldberg.
Yeah.
All right. Low key, Goldberg was.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it.
I didn't watch too much WCW, so I never got Goldberg until he was 45 or whatever.
Until he was washed and you loved him. So.
Yeah. Because you never know what's gonna happen. Because wrestling is real to me. Damn it.
None of us watched Goldberg in WCW.
You know what we should do?
We were not alive. We were definitely fucking.
Yeah, but we had the network. We had the network.
Yeah, but then so did you. If we're gonna go there.
Yeah, and I was too busy watching Enzo Amore.
Lord.
Anyway, it's not about the present. It's about the past. Are we good to move on to episode 4, the Attitude Era?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So we got a lot going on in this episode. I don't even know
greatest.
Yeah. It's basically
while you think about it, let me just say in general about the Attitude Era, because this is when he really after the screw job is when he really creates the character of Vince McMahon, and they talk extensively about how the character blends with his real life, and there's a lot of going back and forth. Some people will say, what is he? I think some people will say like they can't, they blend together, and then Vince will say, they basically he's very different from his character, very different. He stresses that in the beginning of the documentary. They ask him outright, where's the line? He's like, they're very, very different, right? But then at a certain point, he's talking about it, and you can tell he's like deep in thought, and he's just like talking, and he's basically says the opposite of that, and he says what everybody, sometimes the lines blur, and he doesn't know who the character is and who he is. But that reflects very poorly on him because, and that's why he was stressing in the beginning that he is different, because the character's a fucking psycho, and so much of it parallels his real life with a lot of like the storylines, and it really gets into kind of dark areas. But the thing is, as a viewer, it's gold. Like, it is some of the best TV, storytelling, whatever you want to call it. It is some of the best ever.
It's Kino.
Ever. It transcends wrestling. It transcends the WWE. It transcends even TV. Like, it is just that important and big. And part of that's Stone Cold Steve Austin, part of that's The Rock, part of that's like a lot of different people coming together to make this thing, but he is a big part of it.
I don't know if you noticed this in the doc. I think Noel pointed it out to me the other day, that in the doc, Mr. McMahon was like, yeah, when he was doing the character for the Attitude Era, he was like, yeah, I was just acting like the people I hated when I was a kid. And I'm like, bro, you were like rich for most of your life. What do you mean the people you hated? You are the people.
Yeah.
He hates himself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Victim.
Whoa. So
like it was just because he kept talking about how he hates rich people and rich people are the worst, and it's like you
are rich.
wanted it. You are rich, like you wanted this, like this was your biggest desire in life. Like when he met Linda, the first thing he talked about was how her family had money, and that's what appealed to him. And it's like this man hated rich people so much that he wanted to be them. Like, no, like I'm not saying he didn't hate them, but you wanted to be just like them, and you did it. If anything, you should give yourself a pat on the back for actually accomplishing what you wanted, in a sense.
It's also a bizarre thing to say about your wife. Instead of saying, like, oh, I loved her personality, she makes me laugh, she's beautiful, but whatever. He's like, I like you. What made you like her? What made you interested in her? I like that her family was
upper middle class.
That reflects perfectly on who the guy is.
That's something we would see in a group chat about our girlfriends.
So fucking funny.
And I guess this is also do they talk about the collapse of the WCW and all that?
That's
and
how he basically later.
Okay.
That's the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
But are we in the Attitude Era still?
Yeah. We're basically towards we're at the creation of it.
Something that Eric Bischoff says that didn't sit not that it didn't sit right with me, but I think he's wrong. He said that he kind of influenced Vince in making the Mr. McMahon character, but Vince was kind of already doing that character in Memphis, in the Memphis territory, which I'm pretty sure I could be wrong. I can be wrong. I'm not going to look it up to prove I'm right because I'm just going to go by my delusion. I'm pretty sure that happened before Eric Bischoff became big with WCW, like the mean boss, like because he took over WCW with the NWO. But he said that's what influenced Vince to become Mr. McMahon. But I'm pretty sure he's done a character like that before, but just not in WWE. He did it in Memphis with Jerry the King Lawler's what's it called, territory. But that's
like the whole. Eric Bischoff made some good points here and there, but I agree with you on that part. Like, if anything, the Mr. McMahon character came about because of the Montreal Screwjob.
That's who Vince McMahon is.
Yeah, true. Like that's just who Vince McMahon is, whether he knows it or not. Because Vince is like, it's different. But
Well, it was also what they say too is that he thought that the people were like he thought that he was going to be the good guy in all of this. He thought the crowd was going to perceive him in a positive light. And when they all were like, "Yo, you're a dick," he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna be a dick."
yeah, he just like
What?
quadrupled down on it.
Yeah, he
When
thought
did he
that
say that?
he thought that when he did the
Who's-
Montreal screw
Vince
job,
McMahon-
he was going to be perceived as the good guy because he's
No
When
way.
did he
delusional.
say that? He
I don't-
definitely
that-
didn't.
He did
When?
on
Where?
God.
Where,
On God, like I want to be able to like look it up
check.
right now.
Fact check.
Did
That's crazy.
Vince
I
think
feel like he says the
he's
opposite. I feel like he's like, I had a lot of heat. And
gonna be
Didn't do
the good guy after Google will
but
save
a few
me.
more things just while you're doing that. I guess do they talk? I guess the next episode stuff, or is that this episode?
What?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Do they start to talk about the family yet, or no?
No, I think that's
That was
next
like
one.
the fifth one. Yeah, but
But-
basically you got the Attitude Era and you got, Stone Cold Steve Austin being a thing, becoming the foil to the Vince McMahon character, ECW being a thing, the escalation of violence in pop culture. Austin 316 happens, also due to Triple H and the curtain call. So that byproduct is that Austin 316 becomes a thing. He becomes one of the biggest wrestlers for the company. They have a segment about Mike Tyson and his involvement in WrestleMania. Is that 15?
Quick, you glazed over a big part of this,
Blaze.
and I think I know why. You have a hit.
What?
What about DX, bro?
Yeah, that's not important.
Oh my god!
Also, I do think that that was. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was later.
No,
Maybe I
No,
just
it's
maybe I just
the very
chose to
beginning.
ignore it.
That's how the Attitude Era started. That was before Stone
And
Cold.
I can understand. So Eric Bischoff brings it up. He said DX was just a rehash of the NWO, where is somebody trying to take over the company. It's like, yeah, it is, but also at the same time, the NWO led to your demise. Like that is why. I mean,
True.
that is one of the. I wouldn't say it's the biggest reason, but it is one of the major reasons why like WCW got so bad at the end. It's because they kept using the NWO.
Yeah.
But I thought you didn't.
It's also
watch.
like it may have like
They kept-
general similarities, but it's the personality is a lot different. I feel like I don't know. DX is. I mean, I guess I never watched it, so I feel like DX just has its own. It's a very singular personality that those two have together. That chemistry, that I don't think can be replicated.
I think with DX, I think DX and NWO are two totally different entities. Like, I don't know. I don't really see a big similarity. Like DX was like kind of fun from the get go, whereas NWO was like part of an actual storyline. Like NWO was like part of a storyline that was going somewhere, and then it got so popular that it just went completely off the rails. DX was just Triple H and Shawn Michaels going, "Yo, let's just try some shit, and let's just have a good time while we do it." I think I get why they want to say there's similarities because both were like the biggest factions at the time, but totally different.
We should is this the episode they talk about the demise of WCW, or is that the next one?
That's the next episode.
That's the next one.
There's one big thing we got to talk about in this episode,
What?
and that's Owen Hart, the whole Owen Hart situation.
Oh yeah.
Dude.
Because that is out of everything Vince McMahon has ever done in his career in his life. I think the Owen Hart shit that night at Over the Edge. It's the worst thing he's probably ever done. Just the fact that so everyone if you don't know, Owen Hart, obviously brother of Bret Hart, still stayed with the company after Brett left and went to WCW after the whole Montreal screw job. Brett kind of alludes to the fact that, like, you know, Vince, which Vince has done, will punish someone out of spite in order to spite somebody else. So, for instance, like Triple H was the one that had to bite the bullet for the curtain call. So in this situation, Bret Hart leaving and how the whole situation happened, Owen Hart was the one that was going to bite the bullet. Owen Hart becomes, like, you know, mocked a little bit, and then he ends up becoming the Blue Blazer, which is pretty much the first Hurricane. Like, he's the, like, that's the OG Hurricane. And at Over the Edge, he was going to have a match. He was going to come from the rafters, and he ended up what was it, the zip line or whatever, it like broke, right? And it was like malfunction, and he like falls in the ring. The harness on it, yeah.
They found out it was defective, and it went back to the manufacturer, and they didn't like do good quality control on it or something. So then the WWF, I think the WWF had, and the WWF went and turned and like put the civil suit on the manufacturer.
What do you call it? What was the wife's name? Julia?
I don't know.
I forget. I don't know. She got like fucking $30 million. I don't know how much they sued. Yeah, I don't know how much. She sued the WWF, and then she got all that money. I don't know how much they got out of the
fact that, like, so then, like, he falls and
like this dude falls and dies. Like, he splats. So he drops from like 30 feet and is dead in front of a live studio audience. And at the time, not live studio, but like a packed arena. And at the time, they were playing a like backstage segment. So if you've ever been to a wrestling show, you know, whenever they're playing any of those segments, they'll turn down the house lights. So yeah, it's a little bit dark in there, but you could still see what happened. Like, people at the arena saw it and knew what happened. Now, he tries to say in the documentary that the people somehow like didn't see it, so that it was okay for them to like keep the show going. Because it goes back to the fucking mentality that he has. Because he was like, well, if I died in the ring, I would want them to be like wheeling me out and the next match going on. So that's what they
craziest shit ever.
And they had to inform. They like informed the television audience that he had like died. And that was like one of the things where you see the Undertaker when he's doing his match and the blood is still like in the ring. They didn't clean off all the blood, and he's looking, and JR makes a comment like he's like eerily like looking at the referee, but he's staring a hole into where Owen Hart had just been. And it's just one of the most controversial, or it's one of the most like infamous events in the history of that company. And then, yes, we do go through the saga of, the wife suing the company and then finding out that the harness was broken or defective to begin with, and all that. And, R.I.P. Owen Hart.
The fact that he had Jeff Jarrett fucking cutting a promo about boobs.
Dude, that was crazy too.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so bad. Yeah, the controversy really is, it's not, I mean, the death is a complete accident.
Yeah.
But the fact that they continued the show.
That
would never fly today. Never in a million years.
And if like he was saying, these people came here for a show, and if people got mad if you canceled the show, I don't think you want people like that to be fans of your show.
Yeah, you could just get a refund.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
I think if they said, hey, due to the unfortunate event of Owen Hart and what just happened, the show will be canceled, yada, and then like just go from there. And I don't think anyone's going, oh damn, why would you do such a thing? I don't think that would happen.
Especially because it's the 90s. Like, people were like genuinely nicer back then. Like, they are more understanding.
Dude, that's just crazy that he really saw it. Like, I'm gonna get this one off, and then just have the show go on with blood. And the crazy thing is, like, he died on Impact. So when he went backstage, everyone knew he was dead. Like, they said it. Like, he was just It wasn't like,
Yeah,
oh,
art
there's
stuff.
hope. There's hope. No, like everyone
He
backstage
was
is like, we
dead.
got to continue on this show, and we know our good friend just died. Like, I don't know everything, and then Vince being like, the show must go on. It's just like, dude, get the fuck out of here, Vince.
Wasted potential. They remember. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was when he had like first like the Montreal Screwjob just happened, and he came out as the Blackheart, and he was supposed to going to be like a bad guy, but then DX kind of happens, and they call him a Nugget. They kept calling him a Nugget because it was like a I forget what he says. Triple H says like they flush the shit, but there's always a little nugget that's left over. And so they fucking that's how he like slowly descended into being like a goober. And then they were like, "Oh, dude, remember the blue blazer?"
Yeah, and then like, but because Vince needed to punish somebody, and that's just
Yeah.
he's always been like that. He can't deny it because he's done that to so many different people.
But that happens, and then we start to. Does anybody have anything else to say about this episode before we move on to the fifth one?
No, I mean, everyone said what they needed to say. I mean, he shouldn't have continued the show.
Yeah.
First of all, Owen Hart was way too talented to be the Blue Blazer in the first place. So I just couldn't. He was a good heel and he was a good face. I just don't understand why he was the Blue Blazer. I get where I have to punish him because his brother left, but who cares, bro? You're the one who made his brother leave.
You know what? I don't think that I don't know if he might have been getting punished, but it was also at the time the writers themselves, like this is Vince Russo writing the television, and I think I forget. I feel like I remember something about him like finding out who the Blue Blazer was, and he was like, "Yo, he should do this again. This is fucking hilarious." Like I'm pretty sure that's what that was. Because, like, you started off at, like, a good spot. Like, the Black Heart would have been, like, a good heel. And then they were just like, you know what? Let's just fucking ruin it.
You know what I was surprised that they didn't talk about during, like, this documentary was the brawl for
all. Yeah, well, there are a lot of things that they do, like, not reference. And I guess, because they've done, I don't know if, this is, like, Netflix, so I don't know how many wrestling things are on here, but Vice has like their whole series, like the Dark Side of the Ring, and they've done a couple different specials recently about like the Brawl for All and events like that. I don't know if it's the same people, but that was like recently brought up. So maybe they just avoided it due to recency.
No, they can still talk about it. Fuck it.
I think with the Brawl for All, that's more of a Vince Russo situation. I think Vince didn't care about those wrestlers that were in it. And Vince Russo was like, this is such a great idea. And then it was more so of a Vince Russo situation more than a Vince situation. Even though it's still going to be on Vince's hands because it's Vince's company and he should be paying attention to everything. But I think that's more on like Vince Russo being a fucking weirdo and an idiot for that.
I think that they use other examples as like them trying to be innovative and failing. So like they reference the XFL, the bodybuilding thing, the restaurant, what was the other thing? The radio show.
Yeah, hot take. The XFL stuff was not needed. I can care less about the XFL stuff.
I think
there's a lot of shit in here that was superfluous and like kind of pointless. Like it focused too much rather on like that's the biggest weakness of this as a documentary is it tried to tell the story of the WWE for audiences that may not know.
Yeah.
On top of telling the story of just Vince McMahon, it should have just focused on him, like really kind of actually said something about, like made it a little bit, just spent more time on him and less time on like the minutia of like every little thing that's ever happened.
Well, I think one of the themes of the documentary overall is, well, like, as we're starting to get to the end here, it starts to circle back into his like relationship with his father. And how he then inevitably like treats his own family. But I think he's always just had this like complex where it's not that I'm just as good as my father, it's that I'm better than my father. I will, I'm going to take this territory and I'm going to make it a national product And I think he's always been obsessed with being known. He's always tried to break outside of the wrestling world into like the mainstream consciousness. So he's done like all these different things to like also be under the McMahon umbrella or whatever. Like, remember all of the WWE films that he tried to do that like none of them were successful? They don't talk about that at
The
all.
one
With Hulk Hogan. They talked about the bullet, whatever.
They talked about the
thing
one,
that
but like,
was.
what about any of the Marines or the one with
Yeah.
Kane where he said that
Hear
Kane
no
should
evil,
have the
see
3
no
foot long
evil, whatever.
penis?
He'll do anything to get out of wrestling
Yes.
and buy UFC.
Yes, exactly. So
The one
The
good
one
business
thing
deal he
that
had.
would have worked.
well, we'll get into that, but again, I think that it's because of his fucked up complex that he then won't allow his son to like have an opportunity because he doesn't
Can
want to
we?
be proven better than.
Are we talking about episode 5 now? Is this
Yeah,
the
this is
Shane
basically
McMahon?
episode 5. It
Okay.
starts by him saying he was molested again.
Can I talk about Shane McMahon real quick?
Go off,
Yeah.
King.
I just think like this is the best part of the doc is, and probably the part that redeems it. Like for a lot of it is felt empty to me. And yeah, there's interesting spots, but the part that really made it feel like it and like this was a good documentary for me is all this shit. Really ties the in a really nice way, because the way this guy treats his son so
fucking garbage.
fucked up, and like it's all. But the other layer to this is it's amazing he involved his 2 kids in the business, and they were actually good at it. Like they were so good.
Yeah.
Stephanie as a heel is awesome. You know, he has tons of people chanting "slut" at his, and like
But she took it on the chin though.
fucking took it on the chin. Like she's a champion, dude. But like it's just amazing because you can tell from this documentary. I don't think either of them are really crazy about that guy. Like they don't.
Yeah,
They fucking do not like him. But it's really interesting just seeing him. How he basically is repeating the mistakes his dad made, and like he's acting like Shane McMahon's asking and dad, but like because Shane wants to be, he wants to carry on his family business, and Vince is like, well, I bought the business from my dad. Well, you bought the business when it was not worth anything. Like it was worth very little. Like it's a completely different world you're living in, and you're asking this guy to come up with millions of dollars when you won't help him invest in UFC, something that would have been a very successful business. Like,
And also, then real quick about the
Shane
UFC,
leaves. He leaves. Apparently, he does well, and then he comes back. I think the only reason he came back and it like that reunion is because Shane did, and like his dad basically was like, "Yeah, I'm probably."
I love you, but you were cutting out that whole time. So can you just like?
All right. Well, you should have stopped me.
I heard most of it. I heard that. No, but real quick,
that was a waste of time, bro.
The fact that he didn't believe in the UFC, even though at that point he already had Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn in his company prior, is weird to me. That he didn't look at UFC as some sort of he didn't care about it enough to oh, maybe we should invest in it. He shut it down right away, as if he had no inkling of what the UFC was, when he had 2 people that were already in that company before. He could have just talked to Ken Shamrock probably and be like, is this something that's good? How does it work? Blah, blah, blah. He could have gotten more of an understanding. Instead, he was like, we build characters and we don't deal with reality in a sense. And it was all right, dude.
Well, I think because of the XFL, once it failed, he was like, I kind of don't want to do anything that's sports. Well, because that's the thing too. Ultimately, the UFC has a hard time marketing fighters, mostly because they choose not to do it, so they can intentionally not pay them. But that's another topic for another day. Yeah, I think they intentionally don't market their fighters enough so that they can choose to pay them less than they should. But again, different thing. But it's just, I think that ever since he failed at setting up his own version of football, I think that he kind of went like, I don't want to do anything with like real sports, and then also at the same time that it's exactly the same thing. Like you can't make a character, you can't invest in somebody like because he wants to make he ultimately wants a Hulk Hogan, he wants a Steve Austin, he wants a Rock, he wants a figure that he can invest in and reap the rewards for a very large period of time. If you invest in a fighter, unless they're, John Jones or GSP, like eventually they're going to lose and no one's going to really care as much as they would in their prime before they lost. And
I was gonna say, like, in this episode, in the family episode, Shane McMahon, I really think out of everyone in the entire podcast, in the entire documentary, Shane McMahon to me is the biggest winner. Shane McMahon is the only one that understood, like, okay, maybe we should kind of not use so much of our family, like our family life. Like, I don't want my mother to be on TV, being disrespected. It's one thing for my sister because she can handle it. She wants to be a part of the business. Don't bring my mother into it. And Vince is like, but it's good for the business. And that's kind of the overall theme of this documentary is that everything is good for the business. And it's just like, once again, that warped reality that he's living in. And it's all about business, business, business. And he just can't seem to break out of it. And with Shane is the only one, well, not the only one, because Stephanie is to a certain extent, but with Shane understands, like, okay, we don't need to be doing this. And like, it sucks because he, as much of a shitty father Vince is, he's still trying to fight for that love and fight for that approval throughout his whole entire life, before wrestling, when he takes a break from wrestling, and then after, and for his whole entire life, he's been looking for his father's approval. And it just sucks because he's never going to get it.
You know what's actually fucked about this whole thing? They don't mention Cape Cod at all. And so when Vince McMahon was first involved in the business, they talk about how he was an announcer, then he turned into a commentator, then yada, yada, yada. They talk about the sweetheart deal that he got from his dad to purchase the company, which was, I'm dying of cancer, so if you can keep things neutral and like you have to pay us with the profits that we make, and we're doing great right now, so it's not even like you have to do anything. He was given an arena. Vince McMahon Sr. owned an arena up in Cape Cod, like Maryland or Maine or whatever it was, and he would like run that. Like he was basically given a place that he could like run. And when his son came up to him years later and was like, hey, I think this is going to be a booming enterprise that we should invest in now. And they gave them an offer. The UFC said, please buy us. Here's our offer. And because again, I think it ultimately is a theme of like, I have to be better than my father. And he has like a weird thing about his son that he doesn't want his son to be better than him. Like he didn't want to give his son a chance. The only way Shane got his respect is that he had to then start jumping off of like Hell in a Cell. Like he had to jump off of 30-foot objects to gain his dad's respect as like a wrestler. Like he had 2 kids, and I think that he's the most. He comes off in this the best because he's like the only like actually normal person of the bunch. Like if you had to like say that in terms of like average person versus like wrestling entrepreneur, like he's just like, yeah, man, I'm not so like he's just insane enough to jump off of objects to gain his father's love, but he's not insane enough that he basically became like Vince Jr. and became the super like workaholic promoter of the wrestling business. He's like, I'll fucking go off and I'll do my own thing and I'll prove you wrong. I'm not gonna like become you.
Yeah,
Just
like
a lot. There's a lot there.
He comes up, and it's crazy because like I've always heard stories about Shane and how every wrestler that was around during that time, they loved Shane. They said Shane was one of the boys. Mm-hmm. Shane would go out drinking with us. Shane was like the coolest rich white boy you will ever meet. Like they'll say that, and then it comes off the same way in the documentary where it's like, once again, it's just like he's so, even though he's rich and he grew up in this wealth, he's still personable in a way, and that's just how Shane McMahon always was. And shout out to Shane McMahon. Also, I would say the second best person that came off in this documentary because of how honest and how candid they were about everything, Mr. Teddy Atlas himself. Not Teddy Atlas. What's his name? Is it Teddy?
Tony Atlas. Yeah.
Tony
He grabbed
Atlas.
my pecker.
He grabbed my pecker.
And he pulled
Atlas was fucking hilarious. He was, everything Tony Atlas said was just like off the cuff and just like, and when he said grab my pecker, the fucking producer goes, "Wait, what? What'd you say?"
Who am I supposed to tell? He's the booker. Who am I supposed to tell?
And like even at the end when they're like, "What's Vince's legacy?" and everyone's struggling to say, he's like, "Oh, just the greatest promoter ever. He earned it." Like he's just so off the top. Like whatever the first thing comes to his mind, he's going to say it. Shout out to him.
Dude, I thought the documentary made Shane McMahon look like a genius, low key, because he was like, "We should buy the UFC, and you should let me run it." It was, and that like I've known that for years that Shane McMahon wanted to buy it, and like to this day, I still don't understand why like Vince McMahon like didn't want to, and like I know people will say, "Oh well, he just doesn't understand that business," but now he's owned by them. He's owned by the UFC.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
full
fucking insane.
So to me, it's like if he did that, they probably would have never sold. Like the UFC turned out with the WWE's production, they used that production for the UFC. I don't like Vince McMahon would be like rich, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what would have been cool that if he would have done that, if he would have bought the UFC. Brock Lesnar would have been a double champion, but he would have been a UFC heavyweight champion and a WWE champion. Yeah. That kind of would have been cool.
But
missed opportunities.
Well, they could have done it with Dan Severn. Not that I don't think he was the champ at the time, but he was the best.
I think at the time he was in the UFC. I think Ken Shamrock was the better fighter.
Yeah, and it was hard because they didn't really were under real contracts, so they were able to kind of fight wherever. So when you were a UFC champion, you could have just been I feel like going to Pride, or I feel like going to fucking Mexico and having a fight real quick.
They were making you drop the strap.
They were the screw job, but it's for real.
Yeah. So there's a whole other portion that there's in here about basically the downfall of WCW. A lot of the Sable stuff and Trish Stratus stuff happens. Does anybody want to comment about that?
Can we talk about the downfall of WCW real quick?
Sure. Go off.
People always say that it was Eric Bischoff's fault, but it really wasn't. It was because Vince Russo got control of creative in 99.
Mm-hmm.
And his ideas were so off the wall. He did want to push younger talent and not the NWO anymore. But at the same time, the other shit was so stupid.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be a part of the NWO. He thought the NWO was so cool, so he wanted to be a part of it. He was just so wet. Yeah, he was just so wacky. But also at the same time, I actually didn't know about the AOL stuff. I never put two and two together.
That is actually the biggest reason why WCW died. It was because merger happened. They didn't want to carry over WCW. It wasn't like cable news networks didn't want them. It was just AOL was we don't want this anymore, so we're gonna sell it, and they sold it to Vince McMahon because Eric Bischoff I'm pretty sure he was trying to buy it.
Yeah.
But they just don't let him. I think Vince outbid him, and it is what it is. But WCW lost, but they just never got a chance to fight in the end, is basically what I'm saying. It wasn't they were dead in the water.
Well, they eventually lost that 83 weeks of control due to the, what we all know is the greatest storyline of, the ultimate bad guy boss and just the perceived average everyday guy just being able to beat up your fucking boss every week in Stone Cold.
Yo, but look, WCW did something that no other company has been able to do before or since, and actually compete with the WWE and say we were able to beat them for however many weeks.
Actually, I'll have you know that an episode of Collision did better viewers than NXT.
All right, Dave. All right, Mr. Meltzer.
I really like AEW.
He like fuck it beat NXT. Yeah, the developmental.
Caitlin
whatever.
Clark was playing, so that's why AEW lost to NXT that week. Anyway.
So and then we got the last episode, and the last episode is called the what's called the finish or whatever, and pretty much that episode has no Vince in it for the most part, or it does, but all this stuff is like pre all of the allegations that came out and the lawsuit with Janelle Grant. So
how about Bruce Pritchard?
Oh my God, his glazing.
They really said like
I can understand why he's glazing. I can understand why he was glazing. You cannot say you don't understand.
No. But at the end, he's like, "This is an inaccurate portrayal. I can't believe you guys are doing this." He's like very upset.
Yo, I gotta go off on that. Bruce Pritchard, bro. I understand that like he did so many nice things, or like he did that nice gesture for your wife and shit like that, bro. This is a documentary about Vince McMahon and the WWE. I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about that side of Vince McMahon because that's not what we came here for. Like, you got to understand what we're doing. Also, I don't think it was as salacious as people made it seem to be. I think they did a good. They actually gave you moments of sympathy for Vince McMahon when he's talking about his upbringing.
Yeah,
it's not my fault. Like for Bruce Pritchard, if I was the producer, I would say, look, it is not my fault he treated Shane McMahon this way. That's not my fault. It is also not my fault that these allegations have been coming out there for a long time. It's not my fault Sable sued. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that the Montreal screw job happened and Bret Hart feels that way. Like, I understand what he's saying. Like, he did such a nice gesture and you don't see the other stuff. But the things that we do see is the stuff that Vince McMahon is allowing us to see. So that's the things that we can talk about. It's not like he's working for somebody and we only see a certain aspect. He's the boss. He legit controls everything, and this is what he allows. So it's not my fault that he has a lot of questionable things, and we even forgot to mention it where he says, "Oh, we like talking about the attitude, like before the attitude era. We never talked about violence or guns." Shows Brian Pillman holding the gun. We never talked about rape. Legit has a whole quote where he says, "Come out, you rapist." Never we didn't dabble. We didn't dabble in the sex.
Can we talk about like the Attitude Era for a second and where like the morality police was coming in and saying, "Oh
God, the morality police."
And I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. It's wrestling. It's supposed to be like this. Everyone does it. It's their TV rating is 14. So if your 7-year-old is watching it, it's on you as a parent.
Exactly.
I hate when people say that, like, oh, well, they should have been more responsible about who they were. They said the TV rating is 14. That's who they were going. They were going after teenagers and men because that's where the money was.
And that's what WCW was doing. So you got to battle with your competitor. I'm not like you're not there to fucking raise your kid. Like they're not there to raise your kid. If you don't want to watch it,
where I disagreed with the documentary was where they were like, "Oh, Vince McMahon should have been, or WWE should have been more responsible with what they were showing." No, they should. They were putting on a TV show. The network said it was a good TV show. You guys can do it. In their eyes, they weren't doing anything wrong. It's not their responsibility to raise kids. It is your responsibility as a parent.
100% agree. 100% agree with you.
The problem with that is, to an extent, there's a reason they don't do that anymore. Because eventually, like he says in the documentary, trying to yourself, it hurts. It ruins the storytelling. You're not telling the story.
I do think they did get better in it. Like they're able to manage it now more so. Like, well, even like later on, like they were able to kind of be able to blend that edginess with storytelling because there were moments in the Attitude Era that were pretty stupid and immature that weren't needed. Like there was like that one character. Well, the one character Booger, Nails, like all these fucking people, like they weren't needed.
I love they don't talk about Nails. Nails legitimately like held Vince McMahon up. I don't know if it was at gunpoint, but
nice point. I think.
Yeah, it was not like he literally just comes in and like almost kills him. And it's just like okay.
I think low key. I don't think Vince was shook by it. Vince is like that type of person.
Dude, he wanted his own son to kill him.
Dude, Poor Shane O'Mac.
Dude is just like, hey, I think we should go this direction. And he goes, you're going to have to fucking kill me if you want to push goddamn Dan Severn.
But nah, bro. Bruce Pritchard was like kind of dick eating a little bit, and then it's super glazing. But I don't know, like some of the wrestlers, like it's so weird. They kind of I don't want to say weird. Weird is the wrong word because I do understand to a certain extent. But a lot of them really looked at him as a father figure.
Yes.
And I don't know if I was creeped out, weirded. I don't know how I felt because it's like not because of how they necessarily felt, but they felt it about him. And everyone was so, like, a lot of the wrestlers that were talking were so, like, apologetic for him and like, you just don't understand him. And it's like, well, I kind of don't want to understand him because he's treating you better than his own son because you're making him more money.
Yeah.
And that's all he kind of looks at you. It's like, it's not a coincidence that everyone who kind of goes to bat for him are the people that made him the most money. It's not a coincidence.
John Cena,
Undertaker,
Rock,
Stone Cold,
Hulk.
John Cena, The Rock, Hulk. Those people made him legit the most money, and they are all his favorites. But then there are people who are like in the middle area. They're like, me and Vince didn't really see eye to eye that much.
CM Punk.
There you go.
He says that at one point. He's like, he said that a while ago. He's like, yeah, I didn't. He wanted to have that father-son relationship with me, but he's like, but I have a dad. Like, I love my dad, you know? And so maybe it's just we never clicked that way.
He's like, I believe I have my own father. I don't need you to be that fucking guide in my life. Yeah, no, I don't know. I was like, damn, like, these guys really are going to bat for him. And, like, even, like Bruce Pritchard just being like, oh, man, you don't see the real Vince. And it's like, well, I don't want to see the real Vince. Like, he shows me what he wants to show me. And that's what he wanted, and that's what I'm gonna go and base everything off of. But then there's then they start talking about like, oh, we forgot to mention the ruthless aggression era and like Crispin
aggression.
This is like my biggest
That was a good impression.
I was a good impression.
This is my biggest pet peeve in life. And this doesn't just include this includes what happened with the whole CTE stuff, but it goes for everything. When people of expertise have proof and evidence and are seeing something, and they say, "Yeah, this is what's going on," and people that are not in that field are like, "Nah, that's fake." That shit pisses me off so much.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Like, as much as I love Stone Cold.
And I agree with you, but that wasn't just a WWE. That was like every sport. Like even
I know, and that's why I hate that shit, man.
Like Stone Cold doesn't believe in CTE to this day.
Who?
Stone Cold. He's like in present day was like, I don't believe in CTE.
I don't think he meant it that way. I think they cut it a certain way because he said it a certain way, but. I think I got what he was saying. He wasn't really saying it that way. I think he was saying, like, he doesn't really believe that was he doesn't believe in it in that, like, in the Benoit, I think.
It was also weird.
Inferring that.
Maybe.
I was going to say, like, it was also weird, like, how, with the CTE shit, Hulk Hogan and then even The Undertaker talk about how, like Hulk Hogan in like episode 1 or 2 is like, oh, wrestling is not fake. Wrestling is predetermined. And that's why I had so many surgeries. I've had 10 surgeries in the past, like however many years. And then I've even had more. And Undertaker's like, I walk with a limp. I've had these surgeries, yada, yada, yada. But then when they start talking about concussions, they're like, if you get a concussion in the ring, that's your fault. Yeah. I don't know how you get a concussion. It's like, you just said it's not fucking fake. What are you talking about? You're slamming someone. It doesn't mean, the mat has to necessarily be hard, but there's whiplash and you could just bounce off of something the wrong way. The chair shots, Undertaker being like, how dare you take away the chair shots? That's part of our business. How do you guys think you get a concussion then? What are you guys, like, the fact that you're saying like concussions are...
Not talking Undertaker.
Your goat was saying some stupid shit. But like...
is better than...
Okay, I mean, yeah, but whatever.
Damn.
But I was just like, that was the whole shit. And then the dude Chris Nowinski, the CT, like the former wrestler, ended up becoming the CT expert, is like talking
That
about
is
Chris
that is
Benoit.
the CTE stuff. That is another thing with like the times, because even like old NFL players who have it still don't believe.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like they really are like, I mean, I can't walk and I can't remember something that happened 15 minutes ago, but CTE's fake.
Yeah,
Like
no, like
what?
that. That's like a times thing, because like, dude, like that's just it's like a generation. I don't know what it is, but like
So
certain
lead
generations
paint.
are stupid. And it's just like with more information, like stuff that gets revealed. But like, that's just like the Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and all them saying that. That's just like that's them like showing them. That's them showing their age. Like
Yeah.
that's what they did back in the day. And I don't agree with it. Most of the sane world doesn't agree with it, but that is what they grew up with. I guess that's how it was back then. Like in wrestling back then, like if you were getting a concussion or if you were rocked in the head, they probably thought it was your fault, because the way they teach you to fall, like you're not really supposed to ricochet or anything like that. So they're like, oh, well, this guy do
You
something right.
goofed. You goofed, buddy.
Like they teach you how to take bumps and stuff, and the way they teach you, like your head's not hitting the mat or nothing's really hitting your head. So like in their mind, they're like, how are you, like you getting hurt, you getting a concussion and all that stuff, that's like on you if it's in the ring. Like if another wrestler makes a mistake and accidentally kicks you in the head, that's understandable. But like I think that's what they meant by that.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like that's they meant it as though like you're making mistakes and shit like that. But they're not understanding that like even if they don't get a big concussion, like football players of like today kind of say it like you get small like you and Robbie play football, you kind of get like small concussions, like you're dazed and shit like that, and like that's like a small concussion.
I've
And it's
never
like
had like a big concussion, but I've like once I started to hear about that, like that's definitely I've had like a bunch of times during games where I'd get like stars and I'd like
exactly.
it would be for like 5 minutes.
Mm.
And then like I would go home and I'd have a headache the rest of the night. Like that
And
shit's
you're
not
thinking like
normal.
and you're thinking like, oh, it's just, that's normal, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, that shouldn't
No.
be a thing.
No.
And then then it goes like more into like the Chris Benoit stuff, and yeah, we don't even need to dive into that. Like that's just
The whole other podcast.
yeah,
But
that's so unfortunate.
Vince, it's crazy how it shows a lot about Vince. He really does. He wants to. He's more worried about like him, the image than like I feel like he doesn't want to take any responsibility from like it being a physical sport. Like if he just like he wants to shrug it all off and say it's not concussions, but because if it's concussions, that means it's a physical sport. But then at the same time, he, which I was surprised. The guy actually the CTE guy actually praised him for like being so open to like the concussion protocols and like all this stuff, head injury research and stuff. But like at the same time, he wants to keep denying.
It's because of like the public image. Like he wants to deny for the public image, but in reality, he knows it's a problem. Same thing of why they ended up coming up with the policy, like the drug policy, and how strict it became because he knew how serious it was.
Here's the worst part about that too. It's they literally cut into his brain, scientists, and they saw that his brain
was
CT.
Mush.
They opened it and they saw he had CT. And still, Vince McMahon's like, well, I think he had issues, like he just had issues. So,
yeah, he was just a weird, he's just a
strange man,
strange individual. Like
Eddie Guerrero didn't think that. You see pictures like these guys were friends with him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't always like that. Like these guys. This is a guy who was friends with a lot of the locker room, and one day shit like went downhill. Like that's happens progressively. It's like the guy says in the documentary. That shit, like you keep getting that shit, your brain is literally goal. Like it's does not get better. It only gets worse. And the dude definitely was. It's definitely from wrestling. Like the dude was not going home and banging his head against a wall.
Bro was doing the diving headbutt.
Legit, diving headbutt was like one of his finishers. And then on top of it was getting chair shots religiously.
I think the reason Vince denies it for was because Chris Benoit, like what he did.
Yeah,
I think that's why he really denies it. That's just in my opinion, because like he did kill his family, which you can say it's because of CTE or whatever. I think that's why he denies it for him. I don't think he's ever denied it for anybody else.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but he doesn't want that to be like because of what occurred afterwards.
Yeah, he doesn't want that.
But then you're minimizing the illness that the guy has, and you're minimizing the important questions. Like he should be making that a big part of the conversation instead of saying that's not it. That's not crazy.
But once again, it goes back to that whole his reality, and it's like always worrying about business always comes
He's
first.
Delusional. He lives in a delusional world.
And it's like, does he even realize? Like, does he even realize the families that are like, the family that got affected by it?
But yeah, I think. I mean, I don't have a lot more to say about it. Else is left other than basically. Did we talk about any of his crimes or anything like that? Like he's just a.
Yeah, he's just a freak. Like he's just a freak
ball. Crimes, but there is something going back to Jimmy Snuka. There is when Jimmy Snuka killed that girl, or like when he murdered her. There was rumors that Vince McMahon is the reason he got scot-free. So I don't know if he bribed the police department or anything. I don't know the story, but this is like a thing. Like in the documentary, they don't go into it, but Vice said Jacob Fatu's dad actually was in that documentary with Vice about Jimmy Snuka. He was the Tongan kid, and he used to go around with them. And he never said it, but they did. In the documentary, somebody does state that Vince McMahon talked to the police, and that's how they got rid of the charges for him. Now, I don't know how true that is because nobody else has ever said that, from my knowledge. But if that's true, bribery is up there, buddy.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, it's the thing. He was trying to protect his biggest star. Whatever for business, he'll do it.
It's just
that means a whore for business.
Yeah, well, it's just very interesting that the times that he's done the sex things. So, by the way, we never talked about it, but he said that when he was talking about the ref chick, he said that what did he say? It was something about it doesn't matter, the statute of limitations anyway.
Yeah, he did say that.
Which is funny because then New York passed that law, which then allowed it to be under the statute of limitations. But it's just very interesting to see that he did that, and then once he brought his wife involved, Linda, once Linda was involved, she was at Titan Towers. She was. It's also to not undermine what she did. Once the steroid trial happened, they basically made her the face of the company. So it would be this very milquetoast, middle-aged white lady is in charge of all of this crazy stuff that's happening. And it's very interesting that once she goes off to the Trump campaign and she becomes a governor or politician or whatever.
Oh, that's when she didn't win.
Yeah,
she didn't win.
Oh well, she was involved in politics or whatever. Basically, she left, and then it's here's more sex stuff that started again. So it's just very interesting to see, just conveniently these two times where they happen, I guess.
Also, in the last episode, it starts off by saying he talks about my brain could be thinking one thing, or
Yes.
And they're like,
Yeah.
so what? And they're like, what are you thinking about right now? He's like, sex.
Sex, brother.
And I was like, oh my god, he did that shit. He
did
did
that
it.
shit. He was literally thinking of texts to send to her. I want to see you get a train ran on you.
And then at the end of the fucking thing, they're like, so who's Vince McMahon? And he's like, a businessman, whatever, blah 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 blah, and sexually active.
Sexually active, pal.
He said that at the end.
Yes.
Yes, he says he mentioned, and he's like, if you had to describe Vince McMahon, he says sexually active.
At 77 or whatever.
That man, he's a freakball. He did that shit.
He was at the Diddy parties.
That's why in the last episode, like, yes, like we learned about the allegations more and like all that stuff and like how it came about. We kind of knew the the bits and pieces of it, and it is what it is. Like, it's still ongoing, and he came back to the company, left, and all that. For me, it was those two quotes of how he had to mention, yes, I love sex. And it's just like, once again, it goes back to you, Bruce Pritchard, of like, you don't see the behind the scenes. It's like, well, your man just, these allegations are out, and he's talking about, I'm sexually
They got
active.
your man's, right? They got your man's on sex offender charges.
Got sex assault charges. He was your boy. He was your man's.
You
Dude.
You didn't know about anything that was going on?
Oh my god. But yeah, that was like the biggest thing I took from the last episode.
What do you
He's a super freak ball.
Yeah, super freak. I guess let's start wrapping it up and talk about final thoughts here. After you go first, what are your final thoughts for the Vince McMahon documentary?
I thought it was a good documentary, but it was kind of underwhelming because when I first saw the poster on Twitter or whatever, I thought they were going to talk about what's going on now. Most of what they talked about, I already kind of knew because I've been in wrestling so long.
Yeah,
I already knew about it. So I like the documentary. They did a good job, but it was kind of just, again, underwhelming because I knew about most of it, like the Montreal screw job and all that stuff. So I was a little underwhelmed, but it was still a good documentary. Everyone did a great job. I saw Bill Simmons was an executive producer. He's a Celtics fan. Go fuck yourself. Yeah.
Bro.
Also, Dave Meltzer didn't annoy me in the documentary. Didn't, because he did what he's best at, is being a historian. He should, if there was ever a guy who should teach wrestling history as a college course, I would recommend Dave Meltzer. He's he's a very good historian. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to the history of wrestling and what's going on. It's the other stuff that I'm not a fan of. So there's that. Bret Hart, honestly, if I grew up in the 90s, he would have been my GOAT. So I can't say anything bad about Bret Hart. Do you guys know he also, I saw on Twitter that he's like a cancer survivor, so shout out to that if that's true.
Shout out Bret Hart.
Yeah, cancer survivor. Also, you guys didn't mention this. Shawn Michaels cut a promo on him where he implied that he was like having sex with Sonny. And the way Bret Hart describes it in the documentary is absolutely hilarious.
It's like, why are you telling everybody I'm having sex with her?
No, he said, this is what he said. He said, like, I'm a married man, I'm a straight-laced guy, and then you're going on TV and telling everybody that I'm banging Sonny. And I'm like, well, I never thought I would hear Bret Hart say banging in my life. But yeah, the documentary was good. I really hope one day that we get like a documentary on the allegations, and then we get to see more where they like kind of force Vince McMahon to talk, because that would be hilarious. That would be great TV. Like, you know how they made like those murderers talk in like some of those documentaries where they're just talking about their crimes.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing to lose. If everything is true and he's convicted and everything, I want that to be Vince McMahon. I want him to talk about what he did and like how someone who claims to be from these humble beginnings even gets like that. And that's my thoughts on it.
Good. What do you think, Noel?
I would say that the documentary was great. I really enjoyed, and most of the stuff I already knew, but just hearing it in, I would say, the most candid Vince has ever been, I thought was very intriguing. I thought it was, even though once again knew most of it, but it was still insightful because of just how interesting. Like that man's life really is, from his upbringing, from how his relationship with his father and when he first got into the business to the '90s to even now. He is one of the most intriguing. I don't know if it's a blend of character and actual human being, but he's one of the most intriguing people I've ever watched growing up. And I thought the documentary was great. I hope more documentaries about individuals are like this. Actually being able to get the individual and having him talk like this. But yeah, I would definitely say that was a great documentary.
There you go. Rob, close us out.
So as what I thought it was going to be, I don't know that great. Like episode to episode, it was good enough. It wasn't like the most entertaining documentary or the revealing. But what I really like about it, there's a couple things. Like I mentioned before, I mean the biggest thing is just really interesting, kind of diving it when you really think about, and they reveal it in a lot of ways. Just his mindset and like just the way he thinks. It's really fascinating, and they do a good job of kind of counterbalancing other people's views of the situations and what's happening, and then versus what he thinks. And I just think all that was handled really well. In that way, it's really interesting, but I don't think it was enough. It got bogged down in the minutia of the stuff that it didn't know if it wanted to be for like hard TV fans or I feel like it was riding the and it's okay for everybody type thing. So but I just think the diving into the weird kind of gray area between him and his character and these crimes, what a freaking sicko he is, and then also just like his family dynamic, so bizarre. And it's really interesting. They just have a really interesting family. So it's interesting hearing their perspective in a pretty blunt way, even though like you guys were kind of saying, I wish we got a little bit more. It's like really facing some of the really hard stuff. We only got a little bit of that. But hearing Shane talk about him, Shane and Brett were the two most important interviews to me. Hulk Hogan was good too, but he's a liar. Good. But Brett and Shane were the two biggest ones. You can tell neither of them, and actually Stephanie, you can tell neither of them really like Vince, but like there is a weird respect there, and it just is an interesting dynamic. So I thought overall it was good enough where I'm not really like I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad I watched it, but I definitely thought we were going to get something compelling. So yeah.
Nice. Well, that's that for this episode of the Real Graps podcast. Next episode, we're going to be checking out the Bad Blood pay-per-view that is going to be going on in 2 days. I'm sorry, tomorrow. I don't know what day it is.
It's not
2
tomorrow.
days.
It's Saturday.
2 days.
I
There
think.
you go. I was
Yeah.
right. Either way, so look forward to that. Make sure you go and hit up the Spotify, because I post on the Spotify earlier than I do on the YouTube. Make sure to like and sub up to the Real Podcast Network on YouTube. That's where we have all of our shows. Hopefully adding more soon. Maybe movies, ? But yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you all later.